Okay. Um, Hello and welcome to Well, There's Your Problem. It's a podcast about engineering disasters with slides. I'm Justin Rosniak. I'm the person who's talking right now. My pronouns are he and him. All right, go.
I am Alice Caldwell-Kelly. I'm the person who's talking now. My pronouns are she and her. Yay, Liam.
Yay, Liam. Here's
Very
the thing.
formal, yay, Liam.
My pronouns are he, him. I'm Liam Anderson, and one of my friends just spelled karaoke, Keroke.
Karaoke. Isn't that like
Karaoke.
a potato dumpling?
Isn't that the
Karaoke.
guy? That's the guy who pioneered assisted suicide, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Karaoke. Yeah.
I just got a text that said, going to karaoke late? Yeah, 10 to 10:30. Damn, y'all young or something. Y'all spelled wrong.
Love your friends.
I
Speaking
do
of
too.
doctors, we have a guest. Guest, please
Hello.
You
introduce
do have a
yourself.
guest.
Hello, my name is Tom Bowers. My pronouns are he, him, for the sake of argument.
Tom, why the fuck are you here?
Just like we'll revisit this at a future time. Yeah, maybe.
I've done the visiting this, and we'll kind of come back around to it at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, for now, he, him is fine. So, yes.
So we seem to have.
Are we not going to explain why Dr. Tom is here?
Oh, we do need to explain why Dr. Tom
Dr.
is
Tom,
here.
why are you here?
I'm here because we are going to talk about a medical disaster.
Yeah, you fuckers have been asking for this forever.
Mhm.
Yes.
So what we have on screen here, this is in fact a Therac-25 linear accelerator.
This is very sort of Star Trek original
it's the-
series.
Yeah, it's the
It's the device. They're going to put you
Yes.
in the device. You got too sick, and now they're going to
Yeah.
put you in a device, something which I would not enjoy.
I'm like halfway between this is the medical device and this is what's inside the the vaporization chambers
I was
in
gonna
that
say, you guys
episode
remember-
where
Yeah.
they're having the virtual war.
You guys remember the beginning of Quake 4? It's kind of like that.
oh gosh. Well, this has the exciting tagline. This is a reliable, high output linear accelerator featuring extra large, fully flattened treatment fields.
Looks like a big sewing
Ooh.
machine, and it looks like they just put you under it, and then I don't know. It
Stitch you
uses
up
a
and you're fine.
big red
Yeah.
flashlight, and it just sort of like knocks all the illness out of you.
Yeah,
Is maybe the idea.
I love that sort of even in sort of the early 80s, late 70s here we've already agreed that sort of the laser eyes, laser sort of that's good for marketing. That sells a
Oh
product.
yeah.
Also coming in a color that just medical devices do not have this range of colors anymore. The 1970s, 1980s, sort of the end of an era for sort of interestingly colored devices.
Got,
And
like contrast trim in like an olive. It's wild.
it's got some chromed bits, and they now they all just come in beige.
Yeah, it's all
Big
beige or
handsome
white.
death machine, yeah.
I think they'd look less intimidating if they
that
had more
sterile
design
doctor's
on them,
office white, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you could go the opposite direction, right? I think if you played it up a bit, if you put me in like a jet black MRI, and you were like, this is the goth MRI, I would be a lot less scared.
It has like a pointed arch in front as the entrance. It's
Plays Depeche Mode the entire time they're in there.
Yeah, every time they put you near it, the radiologist is like, prepare the sacrifice, and just black metal starts playing. Yeah, all right, this is sort of commensurate with what I'm about to be feeling.
got like gargoyles on it and shit.
Oh, yes.
I love the Warhammer 40k setting.
When it quenches, if it quenches the gas, it goes out a gargoyle on the outside of the building.
Yeah,
Incredible.
you guys see that scene from Hunchback of Notre Dame? Yeah.
As someone who has at least some of a medical sort of radiation science degree, then that's the kind of thing that a lot of sort of radiotherapists and radiation scientists would be into.
Yeah, getting into this because you really want some like hooded robes,
Yeah,
so, like driving music, all this stuff.
I mean, it's sort of. I have sort of. Well, no, I do have a degree. I have a third class degree in this, and research for this basically involved relearning my entire sort of the X-ray part of my course, which had I done that at the time, I would have done significantly better.
I'm the only one here who is like, I will never go back to my degree for a subject, because we've made everyone else here except me revisit their degree, and I'm not going back to law school for this. I'm not sure how I would, but I'm not going back to any of my old books for this. But so this thing is the precursor of what we're going to talk about, which
Yeah,
is
this is the one you can still find pictures of because it worked.
by popular demand. We're talking about this thing's less successful descendant, Therac-25. But first,
we have to do the goddamn news. Come on. There we go.
So we managed to have a helicopter crash in Australia, and two helicopters smacked directly into each other at, I guess, like a heliport.
Like that.
Two sightseeing
Yeah.
helicopters, one of them climbing, the other one landing, and there's actually footage from on board the one descending, which shows the thing that you don't want, which is a passenger grabbing the pilot's arm and pointing, so as to convey there is a helicopter that you are about to fly into.
Oh my word.
Oops.
So
Right.
the
Oops.
the helicopter taking off shears the front off of the one landing, including the entire windscreen. Like the first sort of like say like half half a foot of the helicopter was just gone, it's just missing. That still manages to land safely, which, credit to that pilot who now does not have a windshield and has just had a very, very close shave from some like rotor blades or fuselage or whatever, managing to land that safely. The other one, as we see here, has lost the entire tail. That did not make a safe landing. It makes a very deadly landing and kills everyone on board.
That's gone poorly.
Yeah,
the last I heard that there was one survivor from the crash, or has that now changed?
I believe that has now changed. I believe everyone on board has died. But yeah, so these are all like tourists, because this is a sightseeing helicopter, and helicopters are obscenely dangerous machines. I'm terrified of them.
moving parts, looking for a place to crash.
As I put on the Chiron here, the only thing more dangerous than a helicopter is two helicopters. In fact, it's twice as dangerous.
Bloody hell!
You remember when we did that Kobe Bryant thread and people got real mad at us?
But yeah, I mean, I've been on helicopter tours before. I went on one over the Grand Canyon as a child, and the whole time I was like, well, if I die, at least it'll be an interesting fall. It'll be very scenic,
Yes.
At like 20 seconds of just like going into a big hole in the ground, like Joshua Graham, and I'm like, yeah, this is fine to me.
I can't imagine going on one of those tours just because it'd be so loud. It would get to the point where it's loud enough that, I can't hear anything, and then my vision starts going blurry.
You can't hear anything anyway.
This is true, but when there's enough noise, my other senses start going.
It's actually not that. It's not that bad. It's like once they put the like the headset, the like ear defenders and radio thing on you, it's really not so bad. It feels. I've been in a much louder situation. I've been in louder trains, I'm pretty certain. Although that may just be the poor quality of British rails. But so the Australians are now investigating how this happened. But as yet, we don't know, other than the fact that helicopters, it's bad when you crash them into each other.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Well, there's your problem. Top tip: don't get in a helicopter if you can avoid it.
Yeah, and if you do, try to like. I mean, this is a valuable example of like passenger-assisted see and avoid, right? Not successfully, but if you as a passenger can see that the aircraft you're on is about to crash, it's probably a good thing to like give the pilot a heads up, and so very helpful.
So wait, was the helicopter that crashed and killed everyone the one where the pilot got the heads up, or was it?
No, that was the other one, I believe. So I believe they gave them the heads up right before the helicopter that killed everyone like crashed into it.
I see.
Wow.
Well,
yeah, that's yeah. I saw some of the stuff about the people involved, and that was pretty tragic.
In other news,
There's weather. Weather is occurring.
weather did happen.
This is
Um,
like the second instance of weather in the United States in the same week, I believe, because previously the East Coast got it, and now the West Coast had a bomb cyclone, which
we didn't get shit here in Philly. We got like a little flurry for a couple hours. It was over.
Meanwhile, Buffalo is like trapped in a big block of ice, like the end of The Shining.
Oh yeah, for the second time in the past couple months.
You know, it's almost as if there's some kind of climatic instability occurring here. It's like there's weather, but
Could be.
more often. I don't know if anyone's noticed this or thought about this.
Yeah,
Maybe formed a sort of international working group about this.
it's fascinating, isn't it? How that sort of I mean, I don't know about anyone else. I'm somewhat getting quite accustomed to these once in a generation events. I mean, I don't know if it's just me, if I'm getting old or whatever, but
Yeah.
every year the
It just grinds you down, right?
once in a generation weather event seems to come around earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like I'm living through one of those 1 in 100 year things pretty often
Every
these
year.
days.
Yeah, that's what Shock said, is that climate change is basically just watching the planet be destroyed through cell phone cameras until you're holding the camera.
Well,
I just want some snow to happen here, and you know what happens instead is it's consistently like 54 degrees in January.
Yeah,
I mean, my God,
that
it's just
sucks.
lame.
Yeah. But so the worst part is, if you believe in sort of like radical optimism or like climate optimism or whatever, then that requires you to go, hey, this is all locked in. It's going to be like this like forever now. This is normal. Therefore, it is time for us to exert sort of maximum effort to make sure it is only this bad plus as worse as it gets, like until it bottoms out, you know?
Mhm.
And I put down there's weather because like all of this shit's already locked in. This is happening whether we make it worse than this or not. And eventually we're gonna have to do like COVID. We're gonna have to like stop considering this as news in order to like cope with it psychologically. Otherwise, it would be all the news that there was. If you remember that New York Times front page that was like, here are the New Yorkers who have died of COVID in like really small print. And then the number of deaths from COVID in New York just like quintupled after that, and they
Yes.
just kind of, well, okay.
Yeah, what you gonna do?
Well, it's weather. My joke for this is that God sent a storm to kill Jeremy Renner, but instead he got Ken Block, which R.I.P.
True.
It's very sad. Snowmobiles also very dangerous machines. You
Yeah.
want to be careful with those
Yeah.
two.
I was about to say, people seem to get themselves killed on snowmobiles like constantly.
I was looking
Mostly
up
doing tricks with them.
I was looking up to see which was invented first, the snowmobile or the jet ski. But it's actually the snowmobile. So the jet ski was invented as a safer alternative to the snowmobile.
Wow. I mean,
Oh
it's
my
those
God.
things in ATVs as well. Like just generally any sort of equipment that you put a powerful engine in, then you don't really require that much training to let people use. This is fine. It's normal. And this is just gonna continue, and it's up to you whether you get like whether you live in a climate change zone that gets this kind of fucked up weather, or Philadelphia where it's just like, oh, it's just hot in the winter.
So it's just
It's
hot
not, it's
and
100 plus in the summers now. Yeah,
miserable drizzle, just constantly.
Oh god, the cold rain.
Cloud cover for like months on end. Everything's gray.
Like we live in Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say that, like, obviously, it's hard to just on a personal level to like the grind of this is so fucking exhausting of like watching, everything just sort of go up in smoke and people not give a shit about it. I know I'm not even saying that to be depressing. I'm just saying that to be like, you're not the only person feeling that way.
I mean,
and I suggest personally what you do is, and you will have to bleep this, but I'm doing it for the comedic effect. Go to the ExxonMobil CEO's house or houses or whichever, and Saudi Aramco.
With a katana.
No, we're not doing katanas. That's inefficient. We are doing.
You need one of those cobbled together guns,
baby. Halbards. And what you do is you usher his into the basement, and you say, "Stand right here. We're gonna," and then you just like it's a 90s RPG.
This is going to be a long bleep.
Yeah, good. And then you the out them on the front lawn, call the news, and say, "Hey, the CEO of ExxonMobil, and you might want to come quick. His entire family's." And then you repeat that for Royal Shell and whoever the hell else, and then you take the entire Congress and once again, you will need a Halbard for this. I'm setting a record for longest bleep, Alice. How can I help you? I've had a very frustrating week.
I don't think so. I think the path to progress is like moderate reforms within the law. I think if we sort of petition the government peacefully for a redress of our grievances,
we could change the system from within.
That's right.
Yes, that's why I've become a police officer.
Yeah, Alice, have you considered?
That's right.
If you consider getting a petroleum engineering degree?
Alice.
It's strange. It's almost as if people think that a climate change.
I have an oil field for you to blow up.
It's curious. People almost seem to believe that an oil company executive could not be a socialist revolutionary.
In a third piece of news.
Oh fuck! Where'd I put the news button? There we go. This guy is in hell. We put this guy in a living nightmare.
Yes.
This has been
of his own creation. This is like watching the Republic fall apart before our eyes to these dweebs sucks. It'd be cool if we were doing it, but like watching this guy with that fucking shit-eating face, knowing he's about to just scoop more hot shit into his mouth. This is goddamn delight.
This is Kevin McCarthy. He is not the House Majority Leader. He wants to be. He wants to be the leader of the new Republican majority in the House of Representatives. However, they have to vote for him to do that. And he has been experiencing a sort of permanent nightmare where all of your colleagues get together in a room to vote about how cool they think you are. And you can't get a majority of them. Yes. Because
they think other guys are cool.
Yeah, the House Freedom Caucus thinks that Trump is cooler, and or thinks that this guy's woke and he's going to do gender to them, and so they've been refusing to vote for him. Most notable was Matt Gaetz or Gatz, the sort of weird pedophile. Wrong aspect ratio looking ass.
Pedophile. You could say it.
You could say that, yeah.
Are we able to say that? I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, he's a pedophile. Yeah, he's a pedophile.
Also, we have facts to back that up.
Yes, we have criminal investigations to back that up.
Oh, wow, I see. Okay.
I thought you were just doing more beeps, but
nope, nope, dude's a straight up pedophile.
Wow. So yeah,
you need a good pedophile to fight the bad pedophile.
The only good pedophiles, yeah. I don't really know where to go with that one.
Dead pedophile.
Yeah, right there on the wiki page. Federal investigations into sex trafficking. We could call him a pedophile.
Wow. Okay. Well, in any case, Matt Gaetz and his caucus of freaks and weirdos are refusing to vote for him, and all the Republicans can think to do is just run it again. Well, we've had 12 votes now.
We're going into 14. Yeah.
14 times the charm.
Yeah.
He's married. Matt Gaetz is married to the dweeb that invented Oculus. That guy's sister.
Palmer Luckey.
Yes,
I hate that I know that name.
I didn't want to say his name.
I hate that I know it.
The guy who's most recently in the news for inventing an Oculus headset that will
kill its user.
Kill you if you die in the game, you die in real life.
That guy.
What I think is interesting about this whole vote situation is that once they elect a speaker, the entire purpose of the Republican majority will be to prevent any legislation from moving forward. So they don't actually have to elect a speaker because that has the same effect.
Right.
Yes.
But I think, maybe even more effective to further their agenda of blocking everything is just to continue this through another 2 years. Because
we can only
Republicans in the House would not be able to do very much other than block legislation handed down by the Senate, regardless of the outcome here.
Right.
So I think this is going to probably go on for a while, I think.
Well,
It also
Um,
adds a nice little fun thing, which is that Hakeem Jeffries can't be House Minority Leader yet, which is really funny because he shouldn't be. He's terrible, and therefore great, perfect. You know, the anarcho-Republican Party.
Yes.
I'm sort of enjoying that we sort of had, over the summer, sort of our own sort of little contest of just backstabbing and chaos with the Tory party leadership election. It's nice to go across the pond to sort of just, once again, America just does things bigger. So,
absolutely.
it's lovely to see sort of someone else's completely impenetrable internecine process for selecting things. Do they have to how do they vote? Is it sort of computerized, or do they have to sort of stand up and walk through a lobby?
Oh, you have to stand up while a guy calls your name and say aye or nay. This is why Kristen Cinema did the sort of like sassy thumbs down thing.
I think it depends on what the vote is.
Right.
They do have buttons at their desk,
Right.
I believe.
Okay.
But some votes are, I don't know what they call it, like a roll call vote or something, where you have to physically go up.
This is great.
They were getting upset that was it the Democrats were sort of drinking in the chamber or something during
They
one
were
of the
bringing
Quite possibly,
popcorn, which
that's probably that's what I
apparently
would
a couple
be.
of them were drinking. I would be drinking. I would
I would
drinking. I
definitely
would
be
start
drinking,
dipping
yeah.
again and
Yeah.
just spitting in a cup, being like, "Y'all ain't voted yet, huh?" Like
you wouldn't even have to use a cup because I think Congress still has like congressionally mandated Civil War era spittoons. I think you'd probably be good.
If you were paying attention at our live show, you would know that they do.
Yeah, I'm gonna say,
Alice.
I was 70% aware of that live show. It was mostly chants, and to be honest,
Yeah, you fuckers love a chant.
yeah.
Apologize for not getting recording of that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
sorry, we did
chants,
try,
yeah.
just so you know.
Yeah. The net effect of this is we're just not going to get any post office renamed for another 2 years.
Yeah,
What
we
about the
cannot
Justin G.
designate the
Rosniak post office?
3rd August in October to be
You say the 3rd August in October, buddy?
Yeah,
the 3rd August in
the
October
3rd
is
August, the 3rd August
National
in October.
Time Day.
Doing great there, huh?
National Time Prison Day.
Calendar Literacy Day.
Oh, I'm in such a frame of mind for this. Yeah.
This is the sort of 1000 and something day of March 2020. So I mean, at this point,
Yeah. It's been 2016 for
a million
years of a million years.
It's been 1 week, etc.
You know that song came out like 23 years ago this week?
Oh no!
Oh, wow.
Can we
Yeah.
lobby
25
Fetterman
years.
to make the 3rd August in October National Well There's Your Problem Day? I think he'd do it.
Try.
Yeah, we can ask him. I mean,
Yeah, that's turns 25 this year. Sorry.
wow.
Love Bernie.
God, we're old.
Anyway, it'll probably be another 5 years before they elect a speaker, and I, for one, am here for it. I think it's very funny.
Absolutely.
Just want to watch those numbers go up. Anyway, that was the goddamn news. All right.
What are we doing here?
Okay.
Ooh, pretty colors.
Pretty
Yeah, I was
colors.
about to
Yes.
say.
Well, this is the only bit of my day job I get to talk about here. So this is nature's. Okay. We'll yeah. This is nature's own engineering disaster. This is cancer.
Oh, this is the thing that I think I have every time I get like a slight twinge anywhere.
Yeah.
So this is cancer. So on the specifically on the left, this is a what's called a ductal carcinoma of the breast, and on the right is a Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oh.
Okay, so I'm not going to go into the too much into the specifics of those cancers exactly, because each of them is at least a sort of 3-hour presentation. So basically, cancer occurs when there are.
We have to ask ourselves, what is cancer?
What is
cancer? So cancer basically occurs.
It's a tropic.
God damn it, dude.
So it arises when there are failures in processes during cell replication, and this is basically occurs in one of two ways. You either have mutations that are present from birth and those are called germline mutations. So
like the BRCA gene, right?
like BRCA, like Lynch syndrome in bowel cancer, endometrial cancer, and then somatic mutations, which are ones that occur sort of throughout life as you acquire them. As the older you get, the more things can go wrong. So I've put recapping a bit of basic biology here, but given that the standard for basic biology has been set so low,
our viewers, our listeners, the standard beneath even that. I mean,
yes.
I mean,
the less I know about how my body works, the happier I am.
This is where it gets kind of terrifying, because this is when you find out that a lot of stuff is kind of it's all under the control of sort of proteins, and there's no.
Oh fuck those guys! Jesus,
oh my god!
Christ.
It's not it's not really because of. It's not really a sort of conscious process, and even less than that, it's literally just due to like these things have to be folded in a certain way.
You think that you're like a guy? Wrong, incorrect. You are like 15 trillion little like miniature guys, and they're all doing their own thing.
Your body is firmware.
Yeah. You are at best a sort of unruly democracy of like a lot of other shit going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And everyone sort of has to march in the same general direction. If we think of the body as the Stanford marching band.
You think of the body as the House of Representatives, right? It has to elect a speaker.
Your dumb brain is the speaker.
You think of the body as one of several armies marching to the Crusades.
This is why I'm sacking Jerusalem.
Don't loot wherever it was,
Constantinople, yeah.
So next slide, please.
Hey, I recognize this guy too.
Hey, it's this guy. It's
everyone's the dumb parts that make us up.
Everyone's favorite character from Jurassic Park.
Yes.
So this is a example. This is DNA double helix, and so DNA is stored in chromosomes. In humans, there are 46 paired, and then sex chromosomes in varying combinations. It's composed of 4 bases, and these, when they're assembled along the sort of the structure of the DNA, they're in triplets, and those triplets tell the molecules that are involved in replication. Those are called codons. They basically give a little bit of code as to where to put a protein or to start or stop reading the sequence. So when cells make proteins, the DNA for the relevant gene sort of unzips itself, and it's read by something called RNA polymerase. This transfers information into messenger RNA. So this is mRNA. This is messenger RNA, mRNA. So the mRNA vaccines for COVID are sort of a bit of a shortcut. So when they're injected, they go into cells, and then the ribosomes in those cells reads the mRNA, and it's got all the different building blocks. So think about it like sort of Lego bricks, for instance, and it tells it which Lego brick to sort of stack on top of the other one.
Your body's dirtbag programmers. Your body's IT department.
It sounds a lot like a tape drive.
I mean, yeah, not dissimilar. It's basically just gives it the set of coding instructions.
Which are okay. Bulk storage is okay. You don't need instant access to every file you have. Tape drives make sense. Shut up.
And it's okay for this. Imagine solid state DNA. It'd be a hell of a lot more complicated.
Oh, I'd be running so fucking fast.
It'd probably be more reliable though.
Yeah, that's probably a good anime. That's probably a good anime plotline. Let's face it. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So you encode it, and then the sort of it gets to the stop. This has a start, what's called a start codon and a stop codon. It gets to the stop, and the sort of protein sequence falls away. And because of the ways in which the molecules in the proteins interact within the cell environment, it folds itself. So
this is one of the things that, like, this is why I'm the opposite of you, Justin. I like knowing more stuff about my body on the basis that this is incredible. We made a computer out of meat. This is the reprogrammable, self-programmable meat computer, and it's made
meat
of meat
and electricity.
Yeah, and you plug enough electricity into this meat, and it fucking paints the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Like, I do not like how you get from.
I didn't study biology, buddy.
Because it rules. And you're afraid of your own greatness.
I think
anyone
should...
has never been afraid of its own greatness. It's me. I am the most arrogant piece of shit you can imagine.
They should throw like a solid state drive in there somewhere so you can flash the firmware every once in a while and then reverse the aging process.
In your case, Ross, you just throw it like in your armpit because I've seen you try to install stuff.
It's like these guys from Silicon Valley are here to offer you $50 trillion to try and do this. Because they're all afraid of their own aging.
Please?
Yeah, sure. You just got to tell them that there's like a smoothie you can drink somewhere that's going to make all of this work faultlessly forever. And,
I was thinking you could do it.
Apply to it.
You could do it with some kind of picture.
Yes. But you got to hide it in your house somewhere. Is the thing.
It's unfortunate. I would recommend not looking at it.
Yeah, don't look at it. I don't understand. I've never read the book. Why can't he just throw a sheet on the thing?
That's what I always thought. Yeah,
for like years.
Oh, okay. Well, then
I've never read the book. You should have put it in the drywall.
Yeah. You got to think smarter.
Yeah, make it difficult to access.
So hurriedly trying to salvage this, right? So DNA.
So DNA makes the proteins. DNA is the code for the proteins, basically. And so when cells divide, there's potential for errors to occur. So next slide, please. We'll talk to next.
Proteins folding like in themselves. When that goes wrong in a different way, that's some shit I'm really scared of. That's prions. That is
prions. Yes, that is.
I also wanted to say the other thing Dorian Gray should have done is just waited longer to look at the picture, and they'd be like, "Wow, I'm a cool skeleton."
other than misfolding prions, what you can do also that fucks up is you can just go, just do these proteins, fold them right, but like in the wrong order, in the wrong place. Fold too many of them, too few of them.
I have a question. Yeah. I never really understood what folding at home was. I ran it for a while. Is that related?
Yes, that is related. That is to do with the way that that was sort of, as far as I'm aware, looking into the way that proteins folded in mutations in different kinds of cancer. So not talking about prions here, but talking about the ways that sort of when cancer gene encodes a protein, and we'll kind of come on to this. It's often a case whereby it's sort of half of one protein stuck to another protein, and then it folds weird. And so the folding at home thing was basically sort of running sort of multiple sequences of these things and in a simulated environment, seeing how they fold, with an idea of sort of being able to sort of target specific therapies at different parts of that coded protein.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
That's all right.
And you can unfold these proteins again if you wanted, most notably by cooking, which is what makes your meat safe to eat.
Yeah. Is that
a fucking joke? I am out of
my meat's got proteins in it. Like that's part of what makes meat. And so if you want to one of the reasons why eating raw meat is very bad for you, right, is because it's got a lot of proteins which are folded into the state that they're supposed to be in for being in muscle tissue, which is
and you have to break that down, right?
Yeah, you denature them by applying some combination of heat, Béarnaise sauce, things of this nature, until you obtain a tasty snack that you can just digest. Just vampire the nutrients right out of. Biology is amazing. Sorry.
and also this takes place. This needs a very tight range of conditions as well. That's why. So one of the things I get really irritated this time of year is sort of the whole sort of thing. Oh, you should detox, or you should eat this sort of thing because it's an alkaline diet or something. I was like,
juice cleanse.
Yeah. Sort of saying, you can defeat cancer if you make your body into an alkaline environment. It's like you literally cannot make your body into an alkaline environment, and if you do, you will die. Because there is several million years of evolution has gone into maintaining a very specific and very tight range of pH within the body. So the sort of normal range is 7.35 to 7.45. If you go much outside that, it will kill you. And that's because the proteins don't fold properly at other and the enzymes that are required to sort of break things down or go through other processes in the body just don't work.
You also have the risk if you had an alkaline environment in your body and you touched a normal person, you'd turn into a sort of school science fair volcano.
Yeah.
Yep. just as the full Mentos and Coke. That's it. It does happen sometimes. We no. That has never happened as far as I'm aware.
The medical industry is covering up spontaneous combustion by Diet Coke and Mentos.
So the cell goes through basically through phases, and what it does is it has a rest phase, which is called G0, and it's not undergoing any sort of division at that point. And then it moves into a growth 1 phase when there's a need for it, and that's usually sort of cells, depending on where you are in the body, different cells replicate at different rates. Some of them just don't replicate at all. So things like your most of the sort of neurons in your brain, the cells in your ear that have the cilia that control the that does for reception hearing, and the sort of the cells in the retina in the back of their eye, they don't divide it. Once you've got them, they've got them and they're fixed, and that's it.
Those Silicon Valley guys are outside with another $50 trillion with like a project to try and get those to start growing again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to. There was an interesting thing about sort of retinal implants I read recently that was absolutely horrific, but that's another topic. So if there's like a tissue injury, something like that, your skin cells, your soft tissue cells underneath will start to replicate, and those are the controlled chemicals called cyclins. So there'll be sort of lots of those released if there's you cut your hand, and there'll be cyclins released locally and then globally to start to sort of cells they're replicating, both sort of tissue cells to heal up the injury and also things like immune cells to go in there and sort of clean everything up. So then you get the synthesis phase, which is then it progresses onto the next stage of replication, which is the growth 2 phase, which is where the cell just sort of bulks itself up to prepare for division. So it starts making copies of within the synthesis phase, it makes a copy of all of the DNA in the cell to make a sort of additional copy of each chromosome, and then in the growth 2 phase, it's making more organelles. So the organelles are like the little things like mitochondria.
Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. It makes more of those, so that basically, you have enough to sort of power the 2 cells. And at that point, the cell basically has to show it's working, and I've said sort of submit its code for review, because I think that was a phrase that was in my head at the time. So it has to sort of print out all of its code, and
it does
show
code reviews, of course, yes,
for the code review.
Elon Musk cell that comes around.
Yeah, well, not even a cell. Not even a cell. This is under the control of another protein. This is called a protein known as Puma, which is coded from a gene called P53. So Puma is the P53 unregulated mediator of apoptosis, and it checks all of the DNA at that point and makes sure that basically it's done a good job of coding everything on those chromosomes exactly the same. And if there are errors, then basically it's told to sort of go back and code this again. Or if it's unfixably bad, the cell is basically then told, don't do anything.
You're going to cell jail, yes.
Just
die.
You are going to it's called apoptosis is programmed cell death. So
this is the commissar protein.
Yes, this is the commissar performance review.
I think of it right as the Tumblr Anon ask box of the body, right? In that it looks at what you've done, and if it likes it, it's like, yeah, great. And if it doesn't, it tells you to kill yourself.
How's it going over there on Tumblr, Alice?
So this then ends. So if everything is fine, and it's definitely fine, and the cell enters what's called the M phase, which is the mitosis phase, so it splits apart and into the chromosomes line themselves up across the middle of the cell, and everything pulls apart, and the nuclei separate, and then the cytoplasm, which is a sort of the jelly bit of the cell, separates, and then you have 2 cells, and that's mitosis.
It's free real estate or free cells.
Sorry.
It's free real estate. You have 1 cell, just tears itself apart, 2 cells, easy.
Yeah,
this can never go wrong.
No, never. No. Apart from when it does. I think we are to next slide, please. Yeah, so here we go.
The next slide where it goes wrong.
Yeah, the next slide. So this for reference, this is a serous carcinoma, and these occur either from the ovary or the lining of the the peritoneum, which is the lining of the abdominal cavity, or from the fallopian tubes. Those are the places it tends to arise from. And this actually is due to when you have one of the things that can go wrong is that you have a mutation in p53. So if you have a germline mutation in p53, which is what BRCA gives you, then this is one of the things that can go wrong. So
my code checking protein doesn't check code right, and it just misses this.
Elon Musk, you're here again.
My commissar showed too much mercy.
So eventually what happens is enough errors start to slip through, enough sort of somatic errors slip through that you get uncontrolled division of cells. So that's one of the processes. So you get failure in checking. And the other thing is when the chromosomes are pulling apart, then a bit of one chromosome can get attached to another. And this is called a translocation. Now, in some cases, this is what's called a balanced translocation. So the bit of the one chromosome that's stuck to the other chromosome, and then the bit of the other one is stuck to the other one, it's what's called balanced translocation. So it still functions the same. But sometimes then it happens in a region where you then get misfolding of proteins, or the protein kind of cuts off early or something like that. And then you get a sort of misfolded protein. In some cases, what will happen is that this will get recognized and the cell will be told to destroy itself again. And in some cases it won't. And then this is where the sort of the checking sort of thing. But p53 is kind of the commissar protein effectively. It is responsible for, so errors in p53 are responsible for about 50% of all cancers, based on the sort of current understanding we have of genomics. So
what we need is a second commissar protein to check the work of the first commissar.
Yes.
Oh no, a second commissar protein has hit the towers.
You see why Stalinism takes off. We need an NKVD blocking detachments of proteins.
Well, I think the NKVD also had commissars, and
commissars all the way down. You know,
I was about to say. So you really need one sort of
you just need the 7th Army at Stalingrad.
Biological Stalin.
Just so long as like it's not at the level where I have to like individually approve cell division requests. Like
I got news for you about the doctor's
and I'm like, I have like 16 million unopened things per day where I'm like, yes, no, yes.
Alice, let me ask you a question.
The development of the body is a lot like the development of the Soviet Union.
How many unopened emails do you have right now?
Currently? Oh god. Let's see. Opening Gmail. 193.
44,244.
Jesus. I'll be honest, you are not checking your own cell division, Liam. You're just not doing it. You need a protein to do that.
I have an anarchist, therefore
I got 61,000.
In matters of boots, defer to the bootmaker. In matters of cell division, refer to Puma.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've got a very satisfying 123. That's, if nothing else, a nice little sequence. That's fine. I don't think any of them are of particular relevance. So anyway,
so this goes wrong. You get cancer.
This goes wrong. You get cancer.
Is any number of different things, which is why saying cure cancer is weird. Right? It's like saying cure virus.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, there are different factors that are involved. Some and sort of germline sort of mutations are, to some extent they're sort of less involved in terms of the somatic mutations. Those are the kind of things where people say, making lifestyle changes and all that kind of stuff. You can you theoretically are reducing your exposure to certain carcinogens, which reduces the risk of their sort of picking up sort of somatic mutations as you go along.
We can absolutely give somebody cancer. We have that.
We're going to find out how even.
Yes. So in terms of what we can do to treat cancer, the body itself does recognize malignant cancer cells and will try to destroy them using the immune system. So this is using mostly the sort of T lymphocytes, which are the things that are involved here, the sort of cytotoxic T cells, and what as the cell acquires mutations, it expresses.
It's the next slide, Justin.
Yeah, it's the next slide. It expresses starts to sort of stop expressing the self proteins on its surface, which let the the body know that this cell has gone wrong. And cells that have gone wrong, so they will initially try to display those proteins so that they get killed off by the immune system. But as they acquire mutations, every time this mutant cell divides, it picks up more mutations as it goes along. And every time it does that, it acquires more and more resistance to the body's own defenses, and it starts outstripping the immune system's ability to
looking on itself and is like, no, I'm no longer human.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's sort of like hoisted its own flag. It's like it's getting along quite nicely. It's growing itself, it's reproducing, it's doing its thing. But unfortunately, because doctors hate fun, and God forbid women be allowed to do anything. Merely because this will kill a person, they're like, no, you're not allowed to do that. We have to stop you from doing this.
So we do have treatment. So that broad sort of things that we have to do. There are sort of non-chemotherapy medications. So a lot of cancers are things that are arising in endocrine organs, so organs that produce hormones, and they arise from cells that are under the control of hormones. And so we can do things that block or downregulate hormones. Those things like in breast cancer, a lot of things are estrogen sensitive, or in prostate cancer, testosterone sensitive. So you can use
this is why whenever you choose to alter your testosterone or estrogen levels, they will give you a little handout that tells you, amongst other things, this will increase your risk of certain kinds of cancer.
Exactly. So you change.
I'm growing the tits. Don't care. But it's nice. It was nice of you to warn me. I'm going to disregard that warning. But thank you.
But it will also while it may increase certain types of cancer risk, it'll actually decrease others.
Yeah. Not a lot of trans women with prostate cancer. Some, but not many.
No, and it is the same medication. And this is, of course, on a slight tangent, why you get sort of certain individuals who will talk about, these are cancer drugs. These are hard. Like so many people die after using these drugs. Well, yes, because the majority of people
have cancer.
Have cancer.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, this is actually for sort of hormone cancers under hormone control, very successful. So you can for sort of people with lower grade prostate cancer, who they'll have monitoring and stuff and be on sort of testosterone blockers, and they'll do well for several years before it starts running into problems on just suppressing testosterone.
Not only is your cancer very well controlled, but you're also achieving femboy aesthetics, which is classic as far as I'm concerned.
I'm sorry, your only treatment is forced feminization.
Oh no, doctor, don't tell me that.
And then sort of the other thing that sort of I've got to change the order around I wrote these in, because I think the other thing that's sort of pretty easy to sort of understand is sort of surgery. So we cut the cancer out and hope that we've sort of done that with enough of a margin of normal tissue around it, and before it spread anywhere else. So I didn't say up top, but I just said my job. I am a histopathologist. I'm a trainee in histopathology, and that most of my job is looking at lab specimens and sort of deciding on what sort of cancer someone has, and grading it and staging it, and that helps then people sort of at the sort of team meetings then decide what's the best sort of form of treatment, and then also looking at specimens whether someone has had their cancer excised and saying, there's sort of a margin of sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean the margins are tiny we're talking about here. I mean, sort of what is considered sort of acceptable margins for sort of some cancers is sort of 1 millimeter of normal tissue around it. But if it's a clear margin, it's a clear margin.
It's sort of like you're applying a sort of a paradigmatic change to the cancer. The cancer is just like replicating itself, having fun, and you're like, I am an organism that exists on a macro scale rather than a micro scale. Therefore, I can cut you off and throw you into the bin, and you can just like exist there and die. So
I mean, into paraffin block slides in my case, or the bin eventually. The bin in a controlled manner, according to the.
Not just into like an open like mesh waste basket.
It's just bins all around the hospital full of masses of bleeding
flesh. That shit out, baby.
in the operating theater, the surgeon's setting up a little basketball hoop and doing like a 3-pointer with like an excised tumor into the bin.
I mean, I should say I am actually an ex-surgeon, so I switched career paths, but I can't really speak for that sort of what has gone on in operating theatres that I've seen, because one of the things I have to sort of say, Barry, sort of appear on this is I have to sort of any comments made are, of course, in line with GMC guidelines, and all disposal of tissue does take place in accordance with the Human Tissue Act.
I know, which sucks, by the way, because it means that if you get genital reconstructive surgery or whatever they're calling it this week, they won't let you keep your balls in a jar. They won't let you turn them into like a little mutant's cradle or anything.
You have to send them to me, so I look at them and I go. So I take a section of them and look under the microscope and go, well, at least these were fine. You did not have cancer at the time that they were removed.
Beautiful.
So I was hoping to have like an inert, like desk toy of these,
Yeah. The good news is congratulations on your affirmative surgery, and the better news is you didn't have cancer when you did.
So we've got drugs, we've got surgery.
Right. Yeah, and then we've got another category of drugs. Now we get into this is the sort of section that is effectively, this is the things we found out through war crimes section of cancer treatments.
Oh boy.
So chemotherapy agents. Most chemotherapy agents are essentially all drugs are poison, but chemotherapy is kind of poison. It's literal. It's really bad poison. And a major class of these are derived from a chemical called mustine, which some people may have heard of.
Yes, because FDR, in a sort of strange move that doesn't get talked about much, moved a shitload of chemical weapons to the European theatre of operations, and particularly the Italian front, just in case, when they were pushed a bit too hard, the Nazis decided to do chemical weapons and the US had to retaliate. And this led to I may have this entirely backwards, but the bombing of ships in Bari Harbor in Italy, which are filled with mustard gas, which is a vesicant. It blisters. It causes blisters. And this sort of dispersed over the town, killed a bunch of people, would be an episode in itself. However, one of those sort of long cross-section studies figured out that, hey, in Bari, not a lot of people got a lot of cancers for a long time because they had been exposed to mustard gas or some component of it. And sort of from there, it was sort of derived that, hey, maybe we could use something like this. Maybe we can just gas people. And they won't get, or their cancer will go into remission or something.
So it basically it works by destroying fast replicating cells. That's what it acts on. It sort of,
that's why a blister agent affects the skin and like the inner lining of the lungs and stuff.
Yeah, skin, lining of the lungs, mucous membranes, anywhere where there is. So skin has a rapid turnover, mucous membranes everywhere have a rapid turnover, and cancer cells have a rapid turnover because they're not constrained by the body's own sort of checking mechanisms. They've gone beyond that. They just replicate. And it's why that there are sort of such dramatic sort of side effects, those sort of hair loss, immune compromise, infertility. People have sort of vomiting, and they can have sort of bleeding from the gut because all of these cell processes are being disrupted, and it's almost kind of a bit of a race to see which is going to do first, sort of cause significant harm to the patient in terms of the immune compromise and things like that. It's why people are at such risk of sort of getting other things like pneumonias or whatever, versus depleting the cancer cells, and it's often used as a sort of an adjunct. So things like a lot of the breast cancer things that I see whereby people have some rounds of chemotherapy to shrink the tumor down. So you may have something that's sort of 5-6 centimeters, and it's sort of shrunk down to a centimeter or so, which means that you can do a much more limited excision of it, for instance. But it is horrible stuff, and cyclophosphamide is a very common agent, and that is the kind of current treatment which is derived from mustine, which is the sort of mustard gas. And then the final one is radiotherapy. And so radiotherapy, thank you to sort of the sort of very early pioneers of radiation science. We know
the
that
guys who are like, sleeping on big lumps of uranium,
Yes.
like
Thanks, Madam
chewing on big
Curie.
lumps
Yes.
of uranium, all of these
Yes.
things. We know that radioactivity is a fucking great way of killing cells. Really
Yeah.
good at it.
It works pretty good, yeah.
Proton therapy. Let you just stand here, and I'm gonna fire this particle accelerator at you, and you won't have cancer anymore.
We'll get there.
We will get there, because But so sort of 19th century, late 19th century, even there had been sort of use of therapeutic X-rays and other sort of radiation for cancer treatment, and
I always
then
forget that an X-ray is ionizing radiation. It's
Yes,
just like
yes,
a form of it that's weird.
yeah. But basically, it's very similar to sort of chemotherapy in that it affects most cells that are replicating quickly, and the quicker that they're replicating, the more they'll be disrupted by the radiation. So, I think we're on to the next slide where we're going to talk about
This is
sort
also
of
how
ionized-
cancer treatment. This is also how cancer treatment causes huge headaches for structural engineers.
Yeah.
Line everything in lead. Simply no worry
You
about
got to
it.
design a room with like several feet of concrete or lead.
Yeah.
Don't let your kids lick it.
Yeah.
So this is a sort of, I'm going to sort of summarize here. We're talking about sort of dose effects, and so basically measuring ionizing radiation that was sort of first used was the Röntgen, which measures air ionization, but it doesn't sort of really account for absorption of radiation, and this was superseded by the RAD. For sort of the Fallout fans, this is the one that they'll be familiar with.
Mhm.
And this has sort of been around since the sort of early 50s, and it refers to the amount of energy absorbed, and it's equivalent to 100 nanojoules per gram of tissue. Now, this has been superseded in 1975 by the Gray, which is the SI standard unit, which is equivalent to 1 joule per kilogram of matter, or 100 rads. But this is an SI unit, so the United States still uses rads because,
Of course.
Fuck you,
Fuck
that's
metric
why.
system. Yeah.
So the other thing to bear in mind is also the radiation dose is not just an expression of the absorbed dose; it's how much which is the biological equivalent dose, which is measured in another unit called sieverts, with 1 sievert equivalent to 1 joule per kilogram, 1 Gray of human tissue, with different weighting factors being applied and that on the tissue being exposed.
Yeah, I'm wearing my cool shirtless. I'm wearing my cool sleeveless lead T-shirt, right?
Mhm.
My equivalent dose is going to be much lower under my lead T-shirt than it is going to be on my arm, say.
Yes. So you can what it basically means is that you can sort of have a sort of big whole body radiation dose, but if it's sort of constrained to if you're constraining that dose to a small area, then you can use higher doses. I mean, we'll talk about that more, I think, on the next slide. But sorry.
So we have like some coefficient here that corresponds to different types of tissue.
Yes.
Is this what I'm saying? Okay, yeah.
So different tissue absorbs at different rates, which is why that they will sort of get onto the design of some of the machines used to treat this in certain ways. I think we're on to the next slide.
Mm.
So this is sort of whole body radiation dose effects.
People will still be like, why does my dentist step out of the room when they do the X-rays? What the fuck? And post about that.
It's and that's mainly because the radiation doses are stochastic. So the more doses you are exposed to over a length of time, the more they build up within the body. So
you had this explained to me in idiot form one time, very effectively, I should say, which is if you go to a bar and you have a drink, you're going to be fine. If the bartender has a drink with you, he is also going to be fine. If the bartender does that with everyone who comes into the bar, they're all going to be fine and he's going to be dead. And I found that a very effective illustration of why your dentist steps out of the room.
That if that's a sort of illustration that I'd had sort of during my medical imaging science course, then I might have done sort of better. That would have required me to have not had undiagnosed ADHD and not got hopelessly addicted to EVE Online.
The killer on both counts.
Yep, that's a way to
Yeah,
That's a way to waste a lot of time.
I remember EverQuest.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I could have been doing sort of boring work spreadsheets, but I was doing exciting combat spreadsheets instead.
I've always been afraid of touching that game because I know I'd never be seen again.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. I've seen you play goddamn. What's it called? What do you like?
Factorio.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't want to touch that because it feels like it's I'm sort of coming up to my I'm sort of in the process of doing my final exams for the however many time it is when this goes out. But yeah, I just have to sort of steer clear of that stuff for the time being.
Medicine in general just seems like one of those things where it's like you're really good at homework, so we gave you some more homework. You like doing exams? We got 50 more of them, and they're all incredibly important.
Yeah, and not to mention that, it's like you have to pay for them yourself as well.
Of course, it wouldn't be a profession in the United Kingdom if it wasn't incredibly unsustainable to do.
No, if
its value,
it's the thing that sort of people sort of on a slight tangent always seem to think, your hospital pays for that, don't you? So it's like no, they don't. That is they expect me to pass them, but they in no way do they want to pay for me to do them. Anyway,
awesome.
It's a lot like law, except you actually contribute something useful to society. What you're paying for was to sit exams. What I was paying for was to go to dinners.
I mean, it's not to say that there aren't dinners. Just to,
We'll be right back. Keep going.
Okay. So, I mean, in terms of exposure risk, then there's a measure of both the effective dose, the time exposed for, and the number of doses. And we have pretty good data on what constitutes harmful doses of radiation.
You're able to survive a surprising amount sometimes, too.
You are. And what tends to send distances to sources, and that's mainly due to this is the second bit of war crimes, the development of nuclear weapons technology.
Oh, those, yeah.
Ooh.
So when the sort of prototype nuclear weapons.
If Liam were here right now, he'd be arguing.
Yeah, well, we lined up a bunch of conscripts, a bunch of countries did, including the UK, and just went, okay, close your eyes. The nuclear weapon. We didn't even tell them the nuclear weapon was going to go off. They were like, hey, we're going to deploy you to the Caribbean for a bit, and you're going to stand on this island. Don't worry about it. And the next thing you know, a nuclear weapon goes off 25 miles away.
But it's sort of in terms of the up close doses, a lot of that was sort of stuff like the demon core experiments.
Yeah. How could you give your own scientists Slotin the spicy core?
What I'm getting is that the deadly joke from Monty Python, where they just tested it on a guy, was real. Just with radiation.
Yeah. This has been a personal interest to me, but there's a whole load of shit, particularly in the early Cold War of the 50s and 60s, where if you were in, say, the US Army in 1960, there's a decent chance your immediate commanding officer was a 6-foot-tall sculpture made of uranium as part of a long-term study by the CIA to see how many different kinds of cancer they could give a person at once.
So
they did that in Iraq too, but with burn pits.
Yeah.
The sort of the demon core is sort of a fascinating bit of thing because it's basically two big hemispheres of plutonium with sort of on a shaft, and then shims inserted at sort of every sort of few millimeter intervals, and they sort of remove these one at a time to see at which point this thing starts to sort of to react with each other. Go critical.
Yeah.
And there are two incidents that occurred, and one of which was when everything sort of fell out by accident, and then the second one of which was that someone had kind of invented their party trick of they'd get everyone in.
Slotin, yes,
everyone in to get everyone in to demonstrate, and say, look, we go moving the. This is where they, we've got the Geiger counter here, and this is where it starts to go clicky, and he just flick the shims out one by one with a screwdriver. Until he unfortunately flicked all of the shims out with the screwdriver, and the top half went on the bottom half, and he sort of dived over it to sort of
nice of them, considering.
Yeah, nice of him considering. Managed to sort of prise these two things apart, and then sort of having calculated where everyone else was in the room relating to him, and there was a as I understand it, there was a sort of an army colonel or something sort of standing behind him. So they had an idea of how much radiation sort of his entire body had absorbed, and then how much the guy behind him had absorbed. And then I think there were 2 other people in the room and how far they were from the source when the thing went critical. And that sort of gave some useful information. And then the other useful information was how long it sort of took it took him to sort of die after sort of going off
radiation sickness.
Yes, this is
one of the worst ways.
So this is down the bottom of our chart here. So yeah, this is sort of this is the absolute sort of this is lethal dose of radiation over a very short period of time.
There's no pleasant radiation sickness, obviously, but you read like accounts of some of these things, and like this will come up when we do Chernobyl as well. But some of the time, it's like I had what I thought was a cold, right? And then the far end of it is this thing where it's like, okay, the Chernobyl miniseries was not accurate, like in terms of you don't turn into like a big piece of like melty beef jerky, right? But it's like uniquely unpleasant.
Yes.
And it also takes a long time as well. Like as we see here, measured in days.
It's extremely grim. So that's that sort of whole body doses. So when radiotherapy is formed, we're only talking about a very small volume of tissue being targeted. So while higher intensity amounts of radiation are used, as under normal circumstances, only being applied to a very small amount of the total body tissue, and the adverse effects are limited. It's not to sort of say it's completely eradicated, because it's not. And in cancers that are treated by radiotherapy, patients will often have temporary effects in terms of immunosuppression and can get secondary cancers as a result. So the most of common of which is something called angiosarcoma, which is a tumor which is sort of a blood vessel, effectively it's like a blood vessel forming tumor, and it's not nice, and it does not do well.
One thing that's sort of notable,
invented by big radiation, so you'll do more radiation treatments after getting radiation treatments.
What's interesting to me is the extent to which there is sort of like very obvious feedback from radiation for a lot of the time. Like I mentioned, people not knowing that they had radiation sickness before. We've talked about that in Guyana and stuff. But like a lot of the time, radiation workers and stuff will know very clearly that they have been exposed to something, because not only will there be like a bright flash and you'll taste like metal, but like a lot of accounts of people who have died of like acute radiation sickness, radiation syndrome, whatever they're calling it now, have been like, yeah, they just know immediately that you have been heavily irradiated because you can feel it happening to you.
Yes.
And the same thing is true on lower doses. Like there is an X-ray feeling you can get. Like if you sometimes imagine like that scales up. You have to imagine, even if you're sort of like precisely targeting the big Dr. No laser. It's not the big Goldfinger laser at you.
Yes. So I think we're on the next slide.
Yes.
Right. So the animation.
Lego. We have a cool Lego diagram.
We have a cool Lego. We have a cool for is it can we say Lego? Connecting
yes. I think we can say so.
Yeah.
Okay. A social democratic Danish brick building toy diagram of a radiotherapy suite.
Yeah, and as Justin was alluding to earlier on, there's this sort of wall around of sort of very thick concrete or lead, or sometimes concrete and lead, and a big corridor with a big door at the end of it. And there are no windows between where the operator sits and where the therapy happens.
I like the extra line, like a sort of like a light trap for film, where it's like, well, I mean, it's very applicable to radiation, but like, where it's like at some point in the distant future, archaeologists will look at this and be like, this was clearly like a ritual chamber of some import. You know, it has like a sort of has a mysterious arrangement of passages and very thick walls.
Well, it's the labyrinth, isn't it? It's the labyrinth of Minos, which is sort of just a very complicated palace design, but to sort of people who've come out of the Bronze Age collapse, and it's this is to contain a beast.
Going very sort of ancient aliens and being like the system of passageways and like inlets and pyramids to let your pharaoh's car escape is actually an ancient radiotherapy suite.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah.
So
Why do you think they built them so heavily? You know?
Really high energy radiation.
yeah,
We're talking like
Ooh.
neutron star.
yeah.
Ancient particle accelerator.
Yeah. So what we've got, we've sort of two main therapy sort of sources here. We've either got spectrum radiation, so that's sort of X-rays and gamma rays, or particle therapy. Both of them require the use of this thing called, which we sort of alluded to earlier, called a linear accelerator. So people sort of thought about know about sort of like your CERN kind of thing, as think about a particle accelerator being that, but this is a particle accelerator. So you have a gun that's fired sort of as an electron source, and then the reason for this sort of on and off sort of rotating diagram is you have sort of multiple magnets set at different electrical potentials which accelerate the electrons, and it's essentially sort of relativistic, about a millimeter wide, constrained in a narrow beam, with the electromagnets, and we measure the energy in which these are generated using something called electron volts. So an electron volt is the energy required to accelerate one electron through an electric potential difference of 1 volt in a vacuum.
These are going through, like, you know, in a video game where you have the sort of like lines on the floor that like light up and flash with a big arrow that like speed
Yeah,
you up.
this is wipeout for electrons.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're just going faster, through this beam, and then the majority of the accelerators for sort of imaging work in sort of for taking X-rays for sort of, you need to get a chest X-ray or something that's sort of in the kilovolt range, kilo electron volt range rather, and in the therapeutic range we're sort of talking about the sort of mega electron volt range. So the beam itself can be therapeutic. So that's what we're talking about particles. So you can move the beam around sort of using these are called like scanning. These are referred to as sort of throughout the sort of terminology we're using here as scanning magnets, bending magnets, or sort of some people just use the term wigglers to sort of move the beam.
Yes. Thank you. Finally, the bad and naughty electrons get put in the electron wiggler.
Yeah, they get put in the electron wiggler, and that wiggles the beam around, they sort of focally distribute the beam energy across an area. So the way this is sort of set up, they sort of go in a sort of a grid or whatever. So it sort of targets the tissue, and it does that. The indications for these are that if you've got stuff that's kind of on the skin surface, then you can sort of use sort of X-ray therapy for that, because the skin is quite good at attenuating X-rays. So so X-rays are kind of you can't really treat stuff at depth with X-rays. Whereas with an electron beam, you can actually target the depth at which you want this thing to hit. So the electrons will kind of miss stuff on the way in, but then hit a cancer that's, say, a couple of centimeters under the skin.
Wow.
So you've got electron beam mode, which is kind of firing the beam through through a sort of portal which can move it around, and then you have an X-ray mode. And to produce X-rays, that the linear accelerator fires a beam of electrons into a tungsten sort of target. And the tungsten's used because it has a very high melting point. So high energy electrons hitting it at relativistic speeds don't melt it.
Next slide.
Oh,
yeah,
next slide.
This hasn't come out so well on the black background, but yeah, we may have to mess this around in post. I don't know if post happens.
I'm not sure if an image post happens. Certainly audio post happens. But,
an image post definitely happens because Devin puts Devin in the podcast sometimes.
So
yeah, of course. Okay, fine. Well, in that case, we can supply a screenshot of the original.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So I'd sort of done a thing here to sort of indicate what happens, where basically we're going sort of you fire your electron beam at your tungsten target, and then X-ray photons are generated by one of two means. And we're remembering that we've now gone from basic biology to basic atomic physics. So if you remember,
I'm still stuck in military history, so I'm like, yeah, of course, the round hits the tungsten plate, causes spalling, which kills the crew.
So the electron that's being fired by the linear accelerator smashes into one of the electrons in the lower orbit of the tungsten atom and knocks it out. So the way that things work in physics is that things want to be going from the highest energy, things that are in high energy states want to be in low energy states. So as one of the electrons from the outer shell moves down to replace the electron that's been knocked out, it emits an X-ray photon, and it gets rid of the excess energy. Then you also get a phenomenon which is called Bremsstrahlung, which is as the electrons from the linear accelerator are slowed by the mass of the tungsten nuclei, they lose energy. And again, that lost energy is emitted as an X-ray. And that's kind of about 80% of the generated X-rays. That's not really targeted, and that's kind of the background radiation. It's very, very inefficient. So about 1% of the input energy here is emitted as X-rays, and 99% is lost to heat. And so, to account for that, you have to increase the power of the beam. The current of the beam is about 100 times higher in X-ray mode compared to that of the electron beam to generate the same output voltage, basically. So 25 mega electron volts of X-ray energy takes more input energy from the linear accelerator than outputting 25 mega electron volts of electrons.
Raising my hand for a question here.
Sure.
If you can target the depth of this when you're using it with like like if you're using this in a particle setting, right, and you can target the depth, is it not like, is the advantage of using this on sort of like skin level with an X-ray high enough to make it worth all of this extra bullshit that you have to do, including all the extra power?
This is where I sort of start to fall down, because my clinical experience is not that of sort of radiotherapy. What I know is, this is from sort of going into this. This is basically having the sort of dual mode gives you sort of a range of treatment options, and it's whether you're treating like the electron, what the electron beam, as I understand it, can treat is quite narrow and quite small.
I see.
Whereas
people
with the
do
X-ray,
get like,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Whether with the X-ray, you can effectively sort of irradiate sort of a field.
Very, very inconveniently, people insist on getting a bunch of different weird cancers in different places and times.
Yeah, they happen in different places at different times, and
rationalize this cancer thing. I think it's very inefficient.
Yeah. Now, my question is, if you got a machine that does both of these things, they're on separate circuits, right?
No.
Ride never stops, baby.
Well,
no.
I could see some problems that could develop here.
So this is I think we may be on to the next slide.
Yeah, it's time for us to go to Canada, and we must ask
Canada.
ourselves, what is
Eat
Canada?
shit, Riley.
A miserable pile of secrets.
So after the war, there was a crown corporation established in Canada, which is a sort of crown corporation. So Canada is obviously a part of the Commonwealth, and so the Queen is still the head of state. The crown corporation is basically a sort of as I understand it, sort of profit generating entity that's got sort of some amount of
quasi-nationalized, like
Please see more for our Newfoundland Rail episode.
Yeah, Canadian National is a crown corporation, stuff like, or it was. It isn't anymore. It's sort of organized the same way Amtrak is.
Right.
So AECL, the Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, was set up in
the Amtrak of smashing atoms together.
The Amtrak of smashing atoms for specifically non-military nuclear energy devices. They developed as a early sort of civilian nuclear reactor, which was called the NRX.
It was a neo-reactionary nuclear reactor. Peter Thiel was actually generated in this reactor.
So this first device, the NRX, it was located in Chalk River, Ontario. This underwent a partial meltdown due to insufficient cooling. This resulted in contaminated water flooding the basement section of the reactor. Among the military personnel involved in the cleanup was one Lieutenant James Carter of later peanut farming and U.S. presidential fame.
He was the nuke guy, wasn't he? He was a nuclear engineer on submarines.
This is where he kind of made his name as the head of as part of the cleanup detail for the NRX. thing. But yeah, this was sort of where he sort of started to come to prominence. They then developed another design called the CANDU nuclear reactor. This is all CANDU
Very
nuclear
funny.
reactor. Yeah,
Canadian
yeah,
like depleted uranium, I
Yep.
imagine. Something
yeah.
like
Deuterium.
Yes.
deuterium, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
and that was
it's fun because you can't make nuclear weapons with it.
yeah.
So you can sell it to developing nations without
miss
as
when
much
they-
of a proliferation risk.
I
Yeah,
miss
so
when
this
they
was
called it
the-
heavy water. That was much more evocative.
This is a sort of the signature product, and they are as far as that of 2011, they remain a Crown corporation, although in the same way that a lot of formerly sort of national type corporations have gone, they've sort of been all their operational activities are now privatized. Sort of they've brought in Canadian equivalent of Capita or whatever to actually sort of run the day-to-day bits and pieces.
Yeah, AECL brought to you by
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then they did there's a lot of this for the yes, they had this sort of asset. This is all kind of reasonably sort of good stuff. They did a lot of manufacturing of medical isotopes, so things like cobalt 60 and molybdenum 99, which is a contrast agent. So in MRI imaging, you can't inject any sort of dye because that it's all to do with sort of proton weights and stuff. But what you can do is give people molybdenum 99, which has a heck of a lot of weight in it, and that is a kind
Gonna
of
give you a very
contrast.
dense injection.
Yeah, it gives you it's basically sort of dense in a sort of in sort of nuclear not an MRI in nuclear medicine rather. So yeah, it's a kind of contrast agent. A conventional dye won't work, but if you give something that's heavy and radioactive, then it will show up. And then they developed linear acceleration technology for racing radiotherapy in conjunction with a French company, the Compagnie Générale de Radiologie (CGR), and they joint marketed a device called the Therac-25, which the
we
French
saw way in the beginning. This
which you saw
big
way in the
sewing
beginning.
machine looking
Yeah,
thing.
the big sewing machine looking here, which the black and white images do not cover the sort of lovely color scheme.
I'm getting a bit more of a stand mixer vibe from this, honestly.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's the KitchenAid, isn't it? It's the KitchenAid.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, imagine you could put some like flame decals on the side here, you know.
They're gonna attach the like dough hook and they're gonna fucking whisk the shit out of this guy's arm.
Oh dear.
Oh no. So the French named this much. This was a I don't know who was sort of here, but whoever was sort of working at sort of AECL was sort of very much a sort of pragmatist.
This is sort of like a louche French guy being like, because
Yeah.
this machine's is Neptune. And then, some Canadian guy from Ontario called like Dave is like, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the therapeutic accelerator, and it outputs at 6 mega electron volts of X-rays. It's the Therac-25.
Beautiful. Poetry. Poetry all the time.
Beautiful. And then so they added in. So they took the French machine, Le Neptune, and they added computer control elements. So they sort of added they had rather than the operator sort of have to sort of set everything up manually, and then sort of go out the room and just sort of press the on button. They sort of had connected this to a PDP-11 mini computer. I mean, sort of relative term, because the mini is it's about the base unit is about the size of a domestic fridge.
Oh, I mean that's mini in that you don't need like a computer building, just a computer room.
You don't need a computer building, and then that's attached to a terminal, which is in the operator suite. And then this was superseded by a second generation machine called the Therac-20. This was another CGR design. This was Le Sagittaire.
Even nicer,
Yes.
We're gonna put you in the Sagittaire. It sounds delightful. Sounds luxury. It's like, oh, you're gonna put me in like this suite of the luxury suite of a hotel room in Tahiti. Fantastic.
Yeah.
This mini fridge that will stop your cancer. Yes.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Regular fridge, whichever.
So this was
macro fridge.
Macro fridge. This is kind of a bit sort of more marketed. This could do both X-ray therapy and electron beam therapy. So this could do deep tissue. So the Therac-6 was an X-ray based machine. It could do sort of field treatment, but not deep tissue treatment. Whereas this was like, well, okay, we can do the field treatment with the X-rays, but we can we've got a sort of you can change the sort of head around on it.
It
so
slices, it
yeah.
dices. You know, it's
Yeah,
got a
it's
thing
nice.
for removing
Well, this
stones
is-
from horses'
yeah,
shoes.
This is where you've got your dough hook, and then you've got your mixer attachment.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So you do this by basically you've got a head which we can sort of see here on the sort of the 6, the sort of the business end of it, which, where you can rotate that around, but the problem with it is that all of this is made out of steel, and it's got a huge lump of tungsten in it, and then on the other side of it, it's got a counterweight for the tungsten, which is sort of iron or concrete or something extremely heavy to balance it, and this thing's all on rails, and it sort of rotates around and clocks into place. And again, this was controlled by a PDP-11 mini computer. So we'll move on. I think we're on to the next slide, and we're on to. Oh no, this is
a beautiful little computer.
This is a
I
beautiful.
like this a lot.
Yeah, it's
An hour and 26 minutes in. It's the subject of today's episode.
The subject of today's episode.
That's right.
And I have to say so you've got this beautiful little VT100 terminal emulator. Well, no, not even terminal emulator. Sorry, I say terminal emulator because when I graduated from medical school, we were still using a VT220 terminal emulator for sort of getting results of stuff from the lab. That has
Really?
Yes. Yeah,
Wow.
so that was back at the quick digression into IT in the NHS when I graduated from medical college in 2007. They were still looking up results on a VT220 terminal emulator, which is running in DOSBox.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Yep. We are now in 2023, and most NHS systems are just about running Windows 7.
Wow. That's terrible.
Yeah.
The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
There are the most advanced I've got was when I did one of my exams, and I have a laptop for that, and that was actually on Windows 11, and I was like, I didn't know what I was doing because, frankly,
like, where's the fucking start button? Where?
Yes.
What?
So and then you've got the actual computer itself, which is the thing with the tape drives and beautiful pink trim.
Oh yeah. Someone color coded that.
Yeah, this is
like the Pantone
full,
catalog was like.
Yeah, full kind of it's the early 80s. We are going to have our synth pop on the radio, and we are going to have our synth pop themed mini computer, and then this is the only so for an example of people have been calling out for this, and an example of how bad this is going to go. This is the only extant picture that I could find of a Therac-25. If you put Therac-25 into Google image search, you will get lots and lots of pictures of other linear accelerators, and people go, "Oh, this is the Therac." It's like, no, I very much tried to do my due diligence on this and find a picture of one, and this thing has been scrubbed from existence.
Wow.
So you can find the Therac-6. You can find, I think, a couple of pictures of the Therac-20. The Therac-25. This is the only picture, which is an artist's impression from a promotional brochure, which was held as part of a library into the atomic energy archives of Canada. I think that's the source for this, and it's the only extant sort of picture of the thing that exists.
It's just like grainy drawing. It looks more hostile than the Therac-6 does. It looks a lot less sort of kitchen art and kitchen or whatever.
The curves,
got a sort of ominous cantilever,
Yeah. So this was
puts me in mind of like ancient Egyptians again. I'm not sure why.
So by this point, this was developed independently by AECL, so they'd ended their partnership with the CGR, the French company.
It wasn't named like this Le Seductrice or whatever.
No, this is
pure Canadian.
No, this is the Therac-25. It does therapy at 25 mega electron volts. Does what it says on the tin. This was using their they patented in the 1970s what was called a dual pass linear accelerator. So basically, it fires the electron beam through that system of alternating electromagnets twice, which is why they can get the therapy mega electron voltage up to sort of 25 MeVs. So and it can do 25 MeV X-ray, and it only does 25 MeV X-ray because that's the energy it takes to, that's, using pretty much the maximum sort of beam output to generate that at 25 MeV, or electron beam therapy for 5 to 25 MeV. And the reason you vary the mega electron voltage is to sort of, account for sort of depth, attenuation, different types of tissue.
Sure.
And the other significant change is that this was built from the ground up because this is now the sort of early to mid 1980s. This is a fully software controlled system.
Oh
wow.
no!
Oh,
It's
boy.
going on the computer.
No.
It's on the
Putting it
computer,
on
yeah.
the computer. No more,
Break it with a
like
hammer.
knobs and buttons. It's all going to be controlled through this neat little terminal. Fantastic.
It's the future. We do things with computers now. So it's fully software dependent, which is responsible for both the machine operation in terms of setting the voltage of the treatment, and then also responsible for the safety systems. Because in the previous case, that used hardware interlocks, which the system software had software checking on it, but it was backed up by hardware interlock. So the thing physically wouldn't fire unless it checked. There is a switch that says the head's in the correct position, the beam's set correctly. It won't fire. I'm gonna shout someone out now specifically because there is one person who's basically done the bulk of work on sort of contemporaneous documentation of the Therac-25, and that is Professor Nancy G. Leveson. And she is currently still working as the Professor of Aeronautics and Astronautics at MIT and a specialist in software systems and safety. And she
I
wrote,
assume because the software systems and safety on this went so well.
I mean, this is sort of, she there's a one of the sort of the primary sources for this is an extensive article paper that she basically wrote as a sort of a complete breakdown of what went on with the Therac-25 is why we know so much about it, because a lot of the documentation that sort of otherwise might have happened is just buried in things like lawsuits that were settled out of court.
Wow.
The sort of there wasn't we'll get on to what happened with the FDA, but a lot of this was documented by her quite extensively. So the appendix on the Therac-25 is published in Software, System Safety and Computers, and quotes an AECL assurance manager stating that the Therac-6 package was used by the AECL software people when they started the Therac-25 software. The Therac-20 and Therac-25 programs were done independently from a common base. One thing to park remember here is the use the use of the word people, and that we'll come back to that. Just park that. That is Chekhov's people. We'll park that on the other side and come back to that. So next slide, please. Again, this is one where we'll need to do it in post.
We'll just I'll send Dev the link to the thing, and they'll fix it.
So we've got
Thanks, Dev.
Thank you, Dev. Thank you so much. So there are three main components to this, and they rotate back and forth around a central axis. You've got a stainless steel mirror and a light assembly, and it's a light. And that shows where the thing's going to show. So you get your patient into position, they lie down on the table.
Laser beam looking thing, and be like, we're just going to aim this at the cancer.
It's not even lasers. It's just this is the 1980s. This is a sort of 100 watt bulb and
we're going to aim this weak flashlight at the cancer.
This completely.
God damn it.
Yeah. So that basically shines the light of the treatment area. They sort of fiddle around with it and get it. So okay, we get it in the middle of the field, get it so that the thing's going to be set up. You've got your X-ray target, which is a conical piece of tungsten that's called a beam flattener. And Leveson describes that as being an inverted ice cream cone. So that's what was in the earlier picture. It's sort of a conical bit of tungsten. So where the beam hits it sort of filters out through the conical bit of tungsten, and then what you get is a flat X-ray beam that kind of comes out with an even spread. And then you can do stuff like put a sort of lead sort of trays on the patient to sort of further direct that. So if you don't want to sort of irradiate a huge area, you can say, well, okay, we're doing a sort of skin thing, but we want to just kind of have the sort of 8 centimeters where this thing is, and then the rest of it is like a tungsten plate,
Sort of
lead plate that goes over the top.
upturned baking tray with a hole punched out in the shape
Yeah.
of your melanoma or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And then the electron mode, which is sort of surrounded by the scanning magnets, the wigglers, as we've referred. That was a delightful term that I'd sort of heard when I was sort of doing the research for this on another video. They called these things wigglers, and I'm like, that's staying.
I'm so pleased that that's what they call them.
Yeah. So they then have what's called an ion chamber. So that measures the ionization levels in the air as the therapy beam or the X-rays exit. So that records the dosage that's delivered to the patient and then puts that dosage back on the terminal. And then, as we talked about, we've got a counterweight, and on the counterweight are 3 micro switches, and they control the position of the therapy head. And so the position of the head can be set via the operator terminal or by use of a hand control. And this is one of the things on the Therac-20 apparently that sort of operators complain about. Sort of this thing is like, this is very heavy, and we have to manually click this into place every time. So we've automated this process.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to like look down through this and like aim with the mirror, then switch it to the
thing, and this, we've got
that sounds like a lot of work.
We've got
20 so like I have to use
patients
this like submarine periscope thing.
Yeah. So
big wheel you got to crank,
exactly.
Hamster wheel you actually have to run on.
And
radiation medicine Sisyphus,
Yes.
And then there's a little piston here, which is like a locking device that kind of helps to lock the head in place once the thing's been selected. Next slide, please. So then the software component. So this is a simulation of the operating layout that the operator would see.
Well, that looks very Kevorkian. I like that.
It's got very whatchamacallit. It's got matrix energy here.
Bad ones.
Yeah.
Bad matrix energy.
I particularly enjoy treatment mode fix as opposed to treatment mode break.
Yeah.
Yes.
Treatment mode make worse as a joke.
Yeah.
So the reason you'll see sort of dates on this that are sort of saying 20 something. Oh, this is running in an emulator. So people have been able to kind of reverse engineer and get hold of the code for this thing and then run it in a terminal emulator sort of to see how it does, and then sort of to replicate sort of some of the things that might have gone wrong with it.
Software nerds are amazing.
So the things that are on the top line are the beam type, where operators entered E for electron. So this has got to attach a little keyboard. E for electron.
E.
Or X for X-ray.
E.
Yeah.
If you put in other letters, did it give you weird kinds of beams no one ever heard about?
As far as that's my favorite. F rays.
Getting shot with a Q ray. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Everyone around me is a pedophile.
Yeah, you get shot with a Q ray. You start believing some really strange things about JFK Jr.
So the next sort of that's the one thing just note on this screen. This is talking about kilo electron volts. We've already said this is a mega electron volt thing, and if you tell it to X-ray mode, this thing will just default to putting in 25 mega electron volts as the energy. It doesn't have any other options for X-rays. The second set of fields is the prescribed dose. So they go in and they say, okay, I want this amount of radiation for this many rads. This is all rads. This is all using rads because again, this is 10 years after the implementation of grays, but this is in the US.
200 rads, 2 grays.
Yeah. So that's how many rads of radiation, and then you enter that. The third set of fields is where the gantry is. So that's the position of the head, and then the bottom field, the date, time, the operator ID. This is Kevin doing the thing today, and tells the operator the beam's ready to use.
All right, so this you look at this, everything's
good. You go enter in all the information.
Whoosh, perfect.
So
cancer over.
So because we'd sort of discussed the design of these of the setup of this before, because you would need to protect your staff from the ionizing radiation, the terminal itself is located outside the therapy room. You've then got radiation shielding in the walls and a sealed door between the treatment area and the control area. And there's usually a two-way intercom system between the treatment area and the operating area, so the staff can say, okay, we're going to thing this thing now. There's going to be a bit of noise. If you've had an MRI or something like that, they kind of go, yeah, it's going to be noisy, and then it sort of sounds like the wheels are coming off every single tricycle in the world at once.
Yeah, and then you have a panic attack, and they go, "Stop doing that," and you go, "I can't," and they go, "Well, try harder."
You're
You
like,
continue
yes,
on this
ma'am.
way until you continue on this
Shit, why
way
don't
until you do the thing where they sedate you. You know.
I had an MRI once and it was fine. You know why? Because I knew I could easily get out of that hole if I had to.
Well,
That's nice.
yeah.
Congratulations, fuck ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas
It's
with
not
this
a
thing,
cave,
you gotta,
it's a
you gotta,
machine.
like, get up, sprint down a corridor, and try and like open a sealed door, which is
Yeah.
That's no match for Roz, of course.
Yeah,
Of
of
course.
course. I'm simply built different.
You are simply built different, and we are
probably another episode's worth of stuff in talking about MRI machines and what's called missile effect.
what a great name.
Yeah.
Just directly sort of laser target my personal fears. Why don't you?
Yes. This is the why the MRI machines have the big lockable door and everything in there is plastic. Everything in there is plastic. If there is a crash call, the separate sort of plastic things that they have to kind of grab because missile effect.
Yeah, the time they killed a kid in an MRI because he like went into cardiac arrest in there, and someone brought in a metal oxygen tank that then got fired across the room, killing the patient.
Yeah,
it's gone poorly.
Awful.
Medicine's great.
Yeah, it is absolutely, that is the kind of incident that happens, when I'm sort of just doing all my sort of radiation safety as part and imaging safety as part of my course. That was kind of things like, this is why this is metal. Why nothing is metal here. Absolutely nothing is metal. If you have metal, leave the metal outside. Just do not bring metal into the unit. Don't bring metal onto the floor. Don't have metal. Metal not required in the MRI environment.
Me
Yes.
talking to Spotify.
Yes. So during the sort of development of the system, test operators complain that sort of entering the data again on the terminal was too slow, and AECL implemented a function whereby you could sort of copy the treatment site data by sort of process of moral carry return. So yep, okay, fine. It just sort of copying it all over. And if the software detected an error, it would respond with one of two error states. So either treatment suspend, in which case it shuts the machine down, and the whole thing would have to be restarted all over again.
Oh, the annoying error.
The annoying error.
That sounds inconvenient.
Sort of by default, the thing that like incentivizes you to use or work around the other error form so that you don't have to do this.
And then a treatment pause, which is where we're dealing with, as we've established, dealing with a lot of sort of literalists at AECL. The treatment pause, which could be overridden by the operator pressing the P key. And up to 5 treatment pauses were allowed before the machine would require a system restart. Error messages were generated alongside a number code. So that's good. You get your number code, and you can look up in the documentation.
Error code 69.
Error code 69 not implemented. The current 1 to 64.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Lame.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
The supplied operator's manual did not contain a descriptor of what the error messages were.
Good.
Thank
you.
Okay.
You don't need to know. Error code 13. What is it? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
That's
Don't worry about it. The maintenance manual did contain descriptions, but not whether they were of clinical risk to patients.
Of course not. Because you don't need the maintenance people to know that.
Yeah. So before,
just sort of like some real like 60s medical chauvinism of being like, well, he's not a doctor, is he? So whatever, to be honest.
Before sort of commercial distribution, they did a safety analysis of the device, but this was conducted on a hardware simulator under treatment conditions, and they ran a sort of fault tree. But this only accounted for hardware failures and not software. And the assumptions that AECL made that sort of Leveson summarized were, but one is that sort of programming errors have been, this is what they said. They said that programming errors have been reduced by extensive testing on hardware simulator and under field conditions on teletherapy units. Any residual software errors are not included in the analysis. Program software does not degrade due to wear, fatigue, or reproduction process.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yeah,
wasn't that like the first half of this presentation. is
Yeah.
how
So
programs decay.
this is so the sort of I originally sort of came on because I was like, hey, there are some interesting medical failures that I'm aware of engineering. And then Alice sort of mentioned to me, oh, hey, we've been looking to do the Therac-25 for a while. And I sort of went away and I looked at it and I went, there's a through line here. Because, cancer is in itself a failure of essentially a meat coding. And we are, we can look here, we can draw an important parallel between that and a sort of a cancer treatment, which is hampered by an error in sort of silicone software coding. So
it's all computers all the way down.
It's all computers all the way down. Yeah, you cannot escape the computer.
We are all going on the computer.
We're all going
We
on the
have
computer.
always been going on the computer.
Yes. That's good.
So
look into the box.
The third point is that computer execution errors are caused by faulty hardware components and random errors induced by alpha particles and electromagnetic noise.
That's such a my computer is the size of a fridge kind of conception of how computer errors happen. This is a machine. This is a machine on a human comprehensible scale. I don't need to think about circuit boards yet, really. There is something has got into this cabinet and made a connection wrong.
So this is the sort of this random error thing. This is an alpha particle error. This is a technique in speedrunning.
Oh yeah, of course that happened, didn't it?
Yes, this is the single event
bit
upset.
flip.
Yes, a bit flip. So that's what they said. Basically, if an error occurs in our software, it's because a solar ray just happened to hit that bit of the.
It just did that.
And it just did that.
It just did that.
So the famous one is the 2013 Mario 64 speedrun, in which Dota Teabag was sort of doing speedrunning things and had Mario suddenly walk to the upper floor of a level, which sort of shaved seconds off their time and allowed them to sort of do the sort of the best Mario.
Sort of like an absurd cosmic error in your favor that this one bit has been flipped by an outside force in such a way as to benefit you.
Yeah, it sort of
I have a new theory about JFK.
Oh,
yeah, you got bit flipped.
You got bit.
The bit was
it just did that.
Don't worry about that.
the bit here is the is alive modifier in the human head.
So a total of 11 Therac-25 devices were installed in hospitals throughout Canada and the USA. And so we get to do a date. We finally get to Justin.
Oh no.
Hi, it's Justin. So this is a commercial for the podcast that you're already listening to. People are annoyed by these, so let me get to the point. We have this thing called Patreon, right? The deal is you give us $2 a month, and we give you an extra episode once a month. Sometimes it's a little inconsistent, but it's $2. You get what you pay for. It also gets you our full back catalog of bonus episodes, so you can learn about exciting topics like guns, pickup trucks, or pickup trucks with guns on them. The money we raise through Patreon goes to making sure that the only ad you hear on this podcast is this one. Anyway, that's something to consider if you have $2 to spare each month. Join at patreon.com/WTYP pod. Do it if you want. Or don't. It's your decision, and we respect that. Back to the show. Oh boy. June 3rd, 1985.
So, 61-year-old manicurist Katie Yarborough attended the Kenniston Regional Oncology Center in Georgia, in Marietta, Georgia, for a 12th dose of radiotherapy treatment. She had had a previous surgical excision of a breast tumor and had follow-up treatment with radiotherapy to local lymph nodes. Now, from sort of where there is medical information, I've kind of jotted down sort of medical notes. This is pretty standard for breast cancer treatment today, even. So you can do, a small enough sort of tumor. You can take a lump of breast tissue out. We call this a wide local excision, but a lumpectomy is still a term that's often used. and it's removed with a sort of cuff of normal tissue around it, and then they send often a lymph node sample along with it, and for the closest group of lymph nodes, and in the armpit usually, where we kind of look at one of those nodes and we look at it under the microscope and determine whether it has cancer in it. So if there is spread to local lymph nodes, or if they suspect there might be, then these can still be treated either with radiotherapy or excision of the local lymph node group. And this is still pretty standard relative to modern practice. 1985 to now, things haven't changed that much. So
she's had breast cancer. It's been successfully treated. And she's now in for this follow-up in the armpit.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
And she was prescribed a 10 megaelectron volt electron therapy dose. So she goes in, the machine's positioned, the operator exits the room, presses the on button, and then she describes feeling a tremendous force of heat, a red hot sensation, and the technician
it's not supposed to do that.
No,
right.
No, she's had this is her 12th dose of 12th fraction of radiotherapy treatment. So she's had 11 previous ones, and they've all been kind of fine. You know, she's gone in there.
This patient was one day from retirement.
Oh no! So she's gone in there. She's had the 11 doses. They've all been fine. And then suddenly, that really burnt. The technician said, "This is impossible." She said, "You burned me," and I said, "That's impossible. It can't happen." Though note was made, the treatment area did sort of feel warm to the touch, and then they went, "Oh, we're sorry about that," and she was sent home. And because she just had her treatment, she's returned. That's sorry, fine. Over the next few days, however, the skin over the upper chest and the shoulder became painful, hot, red,
acute radiation
sore.
Exposure. It takes a minute.
Yeah,
it takes a minute.
She was admitted to the hospital in Atlanta, but then so she was admitted to she's in Marietta, which my geography of Atlanta is and of Georgia is not amazing. She was admitted to hospital in Atlanta, so the sort of secondary or tertiary center, continued to be sent to Keniston for further doses of radiotherapy while she was an inpatient with her radiation injury. The pain sort of continued to increase. Her shoulder joint became immobile, and the treating doctors thought this might be due to sort of treatment effect from the radiotherapy. So they just thought, okay, so she's had several doses of this, and we know that radiation has sort of stochastic effects, but then it's gone beyond that now to where the skin is breaking down, and not only has she got this redness on the front of her shoulder, it's also on the back.
Like you've been shot with a big
like
beam of radiation.
You've been shot with a relativistic, beam of electrons. And
Einstein gun.
Yeah.
Sort of Einstein gunshot wound.
So she was then seen by the medical physicist. So this is a big shout out. So whenever you have radiation emitting things in a hospital setting, not only do you have sort of technicians and radio oncologists and people who sort of prescribe and deliver these sort of doses, you also have to have a medical physicist. So a sort of person who's sort of qualified at sort of radiation and knowing how the radiation is made to a sort of high, to a sort of, this is the person that knows all the theory of the radiation stuff. So
knows all the German words about white
gas. Yes.
It does seem like almost universally radiation is always like the last thing anyone thinks about any particular injury.
Yeah. So you have your sort of clinicians. I mean, and that's not to say they don't have a knowledge of this, because I've sort of, as I say, having done some sort of bachelor sort of level degree stuff, that you have to have an idea of the sort of radiation safety. But these are the people who absolutely know their stuff about medical sort of radiation physics and in their applications in the medical setting. So this guy, Tim Still, is the Keniston physicist. And he's a sort of exactly the kind of obsessive nerd you need on staff to recognize radiation problems and then make meticulous notes about it. So it was obvious that this was a radiation injury. He reviewed her, determined she'd received 1 to 2 doses of radiation in the 15 to 20,000 rad range to the effect.
Jesus wept.
If we go back, by the way, to the thing, more than 1,000 rads is in the acute illness, early death, lethal dose 100 after 10 days category, the highest one that we put up.
Yes, the highest one. Segments. So the key thing to say again, this is not a whole body radiation dose. This is just to a very small area. Effectively the width of an electron beam. So about a millimeter. So you imagine these sort of 15, 20,000 rads being applied over about a millimeter wide area of tissue, basically. So Tim Steele contacted AECL to ask if the Therac-25 could operate in electron mode without the beam scanning, and was told,
and of course they're like,
this is impossible.
No, don't worry about that.
This was not reported to the FDA because they could not report it to the FDA, because the FDA protocol at the time was that reports regarding medical devices could only be made by the medical device producers and importers, and not by end users or patients.
Beautiful. That
Incredible.
is smart as shit.
So if the Canadians don't want to do shit about it, something you can do.
Yeah. So unless the manufacturer wants to do something about a device, and their position is, well, this is far safer than the previous device because of computer.
Yes.
This uses computers. This is safer.
Foolproof,
There
right.
is no way in which this could cause an incident. And fair play to Tim Steele, because as we'll discover later, this is kind of on the money here. This is all the medical physicists involved here were absolutely on the money on what was going wrong, and
instantaneously diagnosed the problem.
Yeah.
Not that anything's going to be done about it, but
No, of course.
But
so a second date.
oh boy,
that's how you know it's really good.
July 26, 1985.
So this case, a 40-year-old. We're now we've gone north. We are now in the Ontario Cancer Federation Radiotherapy Facility in Hamilton, Ontario, for a 24th treatment for cervical carcinoma. Again, cervical carcinoma, something that is kind of treated with radiation in these sort of early or locally advanced stages. It's one of these things whereby if you've got sort of the risk of recurrence after surgery, or if someone's got inoperable sort of tumor but that's one that's bleeding, then you can sort of do palliative treatment with radiotherapy, sort of basically sclerose the tumor and stop it from bleeding, and give someone while you're not going to cure their cancer, you mean they're not sort of getting lots of sort of vaginal bleeding or something like that that's uncomfortable, and it's trying to give people some element of dignity even though they're in the sort of final phase of their cancer. And this is either done by radio sort of external radiotherapy like this, or you can implant radioactive pellets that sort of emit radiation locally. That's something called brachytherapy. So on this occasion, the patient was receiving therapy. They were positioned for treatment. The technician set the device up for therapy. It was initiated, and the machine shut down after 5 seconds, reporting a H-tilt error. And the terminal screen
sort of a pinball machine thing.
So sort of tilt.
Yeah.
You
made it mad.
Yeah, you've made it.
Do we have an idea of like how long a typical like exposure is like supposed to be, just to contextualize that? Just a ballpark. Are you there? Like seconds, minutes?
It's kind of seconds, really. Some of these, some of the sort of the more sort of scanning electron beam may take a sort of minute or two, but this is pretty quick. An X-ray exposure is like people have had sort of diagnostic X-rays. That's a couple of quick second. That's the field irradiated.
There's a joke I remember about chiropractic, which is like, a medical doctor is like, well, we'll do some tests and, we'll try some things. And if it doesn't work, then we'll know some more things. Whereas a chiropractor is sort of like sprinting towards you, about like setting up for a football kick, like say goodbye to back pain. Sort of like this, but with cancer, is like sprinting towards the beam, just like, right.
So the terminal screen.
What the real joke is chiropractic.
Chiropractic.
Oh yeah. learned how to do it from a ghost.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, as someone that's formerly done some training in orthopedics, I have seen a non-zero number of chiropractic injuries. Anyway, I don't want to get sort of sued by a ghost, so I'll not say any more.
Get sued by a ghost.
So the terminal screen displayed a no dose and indicated that there was a treatment pause. So the operator presses the P key. Again, another no dose error. And most operators at this point, this was a finicky piece of kit. They were, they put the patient in the thing. They have to go all the way out of the room, and then they press the button to go, and then it goes, no.
Nope.
And up.
I sort of go back into the room, and they check it, and I come back out, and they press P again. I was like, no, okay. So this was not an infrequent occurrence. And on this occasion, the operator pressed the P key a further 3 times. This is triggering the magic 5. 5 times they've had to press the P key.
Yeah, sticky keys.
Yeah.
Is now enabled.
So sticky keys is now enabled, and the machine enters treatment suspend. So it shuts down, and then the hospital, and then you have to sort of call the technician, and the technician goes, oh, "What have you done?" I come up. They have to, they have to sort of basically, come and boot everything back up again, and this is a
turn it off at the wall, turn it back on again,
turn off the wall, turn it back on again, wait for the tape drive to spin up, etc. And then sort of shortly after treatment, the patient complained of burning and tingling pain in the treatment area. They returned for further treatment 3 days later. By this point, they were then reporting severe pain, swelling, and redness, and then were hospitalized the following day.
Radiation injuries, you feel kind of weird, then you feel really weird.
You feel real bad.
So the machine was taken out of service, and the AECL was again informed of a potential radiation injury. They sent an engineer to investigate the machine, and as the manufacturer was now involved in the proceedings, the Canadian Radiation Protection Board was informed of the incident, and the FDA was sort of starting to be made aware of this. The Canadian Radiation Protection Board issued a notice that users have to manually confirm the treatment head position, but it didn't state anywhere there'd been any patient harm. So the patient who received an excess of dose in this scenario, unfortunately, succumbed to her cancer a few months later.
It was a terminal case coming in.
Yeah, this is the sort of case I was talking about, where someone's sort of having palliative radiotherapy for a cancer that's it's not curable, but we're trying to sort of make your last days reasonably comfortable.
Sure.
Which wasn't the case here, because
we've actually made them much more uncomfortable.
Yes, the degree of radiation.
Saying that.
So this person had an autopsy. And it was reported that had she not died as a result of the cancer, the degree of radiation injury sustained would have necessitated a hip replacement procedure to restore mobility to the joint.
Just like melted part of your pelvis or something.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you got the effect of like sort of like when you open a fridge door with with your hips, but it's the door to like the containment room at Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, the estimated dose here was in the region of 13,000 to 17,000 rads.
Not very good.
No. So AECL carried out an investigation of the incident and failed to reproduce the circumstances. They did, however, identify mechanical issues relating to the plunger locking mechanism and the microswitch array. And what they sort of AECL's investigation, they were purely looking at hardware, because again, this is a software
can't go wrong. Yeah,
software goes wrong. Yeah.
It only goes wrong. We've tested it. It only goes wrong when
you idiot
protons or whatever get into the case.
And they kind of what they sort of assessed was that sort of so you've got a 3-bit micro switch away. So each of your micro switches can be in the sort of 0 or 1 position. So what they modified the software to do was tolerate a 1-bit error, so that effectively you've got three bits there. So it'll if 2 of them are in the correct position, it's okay. It's
now immune to like the speed running sort of error.
Yeah. But it's got an additional alternative to sort of track the fact that it's in motion. They issued a voluntary recall notice at this point, and this was what was called a Class 2 recall from the FDA, which is described. This, just making sure I get everything, sort of dot the i's and cross the t's. A situation in which the use or exposure do a violative product may cause temporary or medically reversible adverse health consequences, or where the probability of serious adverse health consequences is remote.
So it would be nice to fix it, as opposed to your
But we're
class
not
1 violation,
gonna.
which is fix it sort of thing.
I assume this is not a situation where they physically recall the machines, because that sounds very difficult.
They would say what they basically sort of sent engineers out to sort of go and, this is the 80s, you've got to go and sort of redo the code by kind of hand. But there's only 11 sites where this is installed, so you've got to do it 11 times. You've got to sort of send some guys off for a week to recode things, basically. And they audited the changes internally, and end users were told they could resume use once necessary modifications have been made. And they touted this as a safety improvement of 5 orders of magnitude over the previous system.
Sounds good.
Yes, good. Number big.
How do you measure that?
So there is towards the end of the Leveson document, and please just allow me to scroll through. Here we go. The evidence for the belief that the radiation burn could not have been caused by the machine included a probabilistic risk assessment showing the safety had increased by 5 orders of magnitude as a result of the microswitch fix.
Meanwhile, your medical physicist is there just like, and yes, but how did they get the radiation burns?
Yes, the
melting into glue, right?
Just like presumably being like very, very localized cosmic gamma ray burst. Just comes in through a window or something, while they're in the waiting room.
So the belief that safety had been, this is from Leveson, perhaps it was based on the probability of failure of the microswitch, which is typically 10 to the power of -5, ANDed with the other interlocks.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Sure.
So one microswitch only fails sort of 10 to the -5 times, and then they've gone, well, we've got 3 of these. And
it makes sense.
Yeah, so 5. That's it.
Faultless.
Yeah, we've made it sort of so that there's a bit of error. It's 5 times safer.
All right, case closed.
All right, have a good day, everybody.
Next episode, Chernobyl.
Next slide, please.
Look at a nice older gentleman.
A nice older gentleman. This is Gord Simmons, who passed away in May of last year, and in RIP. It's trying to. This is the thing with this device. It's like this thing was so. People know about it because it's kind of got notoriety. It's kind of gone online. So people have talked about it various times. But actually, sort of trying to find sort of contemporaneous pictures or anything of anyone involved. So this, as far as I can tell, is the same guy. Because I sort of found it from a local newspaper article from May of this year.
Love to be named Gord. I will say that.
We do.
Another sort of medical, sort of another sort of physicist, and this guy is the head of advanced X-ray systems at the Canadian RPB, and he was tasked with investigating the July 26th in Hamilton. He concluded, in addition to the faulty microswitch design, there were 4 other areas that needed to be addressed in order for the Therac-25 to pass the Canadian certification for radiation emitting devices. Most significant of these was that there was to be a dose error detected. The machine would move immediately to treatment suspend rather than treatment pause.
So you only have to press the P key and you can hit them with the wrong dose.
Yeah. So what this guy was saying is that it shouldn't let you do that. Basically, if there's an error, if anything goes wrong, it should suspend treatment, which this seems sensible.
Yeah, but then I'd have to get up and walk around and
then
turn the thing off and turn the thing on
Yes,
again.
and call the technician, and then,
I have to make a phone call just because I was about to give someone radiation poisoning?
AECL did respond to this edict from the Canadian RPB, and their response was to alter the number of times the treatment could be overridden from 5 times to 3 times.
Beautiful.
Well,
you can only get 3 lethal doses.
Yeah,
and then
compromise is how we get things done. I mean,
that's right.
So they had made changes to the microswitches in all of the devices. However, the other recommendations, including alterations to the sort of testing of the beam and the error reporting, which Simmons had told AECL would need to be in place to actually receive the Canadian certification, were still pending when another incident occurred in December of 1985.
Oh no.
Worth noting that just before we move on, and Justin gets to do another date, that the team at Hamilton were not happy with AECL's response, and they requested that AECL install a sort of potentiometer system and a mechanical interlock on the treatment head. AECL refused. Again, medical physicists went, no, we're doing it anyway, and installed it themselves.
Void the warranty of
Yeah.
your
Void the warranty and
Wearing
make
an I wear void warranties T-shirt under my scrubs as I bang at this extremely expensive machine with a hammer.
yeah.
just like I actually had to jailbreak my linear accelerator. But
Yeah,
it's a lot
me and
more,
John Deere
efficient
farmers,
now.
you know how it is.
Yes.
That's
Right to repair, I scream.
Stop me if I'm getting ahead of us, but am I correct in thinking the previous version of this device had mechanical interlocks?
The
And
previous version of the device had mechanical interlocks.
You don't need a Ross, they had weight.
yeah,
because
they
this
have
one's software controlled.
Software,
Yeah,
yeah.
wait.
So the previous one had hardware interlocks. One thing that people did note, which will be relevant later, is that the previous version did have a tendency to sort of blow fuses and things. Like it would, it was, again, the reason that what some of the operators are sort of used to the software on this being finicky is that they'd worked with the previous versions of the device, and this was like, okay, it would shut down, it would suspend, it'd have to hit the P key loads of times, and sometimes a fuse would blow, and the machine would be out of commission, someone would have to come and replace the fuses, etc.
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, though, these were these were user end errors, of course. So if anything happened like that, that didn't go anywhere. That's certainly not to the FDA because it wasn't a manufacturer report. So the third incident. Next slide.
December 1985.
Yeah, this is very, very sketchy, the information here. But what we do know is that following this was at Yakima Valley Memorial Hospital in Washington.
Yakima. Fantastic.
Good hops come from there. That's what I know.
The patient this was on their first cycle of therapy, and they had redness of the skin around the hip area with a sort of unusual pattern of injury resembling stripes. The staff who examined the patient were concerned this pattern matched I've mentioned this before, these is all blocking trays. So, we're sort of about a lead oven tray with a circle cut out of it. They sort of were concerned that the pattern matched the blocking trays that they had. However, because they took the trays and after they've received so much radiation dose, they become a radiation hazard, so they have to throw the trays away. They couldn't match it. And
kind of, so it's like the radiation dose is like so strong that it has like burned the outline of the tray.
But the sort of treating doctors also said, well, it could have been caused by a electrical thermal pad or blanket. The patient, so someone who's got they got cancer and they've got it's achy, and they put a heat blanket on it. They put an electric blanket on it to warm up, and they sort of said,
it's possible that we fucked up, but on the other hand, it's also possible the patient's an idiot. So.
Or just the patient's electric blanket fucked up or something like that. We don't know.
Yeah, never mind. The guy has the medical equivalent of drawing a dick into your sunburnt friend's skin.
Yeah. So the staff contacted AECL, and AECL were told there was in no way in which the device or operator error could have resulted in injury.
Case closed.
Again,
fixed it.
Yeah, have a good night.
This device had undergone the required changes to the microswitch array and had a 5 order of magnitude improvement in safety.
So it's fine.
It's fine.
Clearly, it's nothing.
So this device had been upgraded in September of 1985 and had been operating for 2-3 months at this point without incident. The doctors described the rash to cause as unknown, but the sort of what we know of the long term of this is about 2 years later, as the sort of discovery process was sort of going on here, that the patient had gone on to suffer extensive skin and soft tissue injury, non-healing ulceration requiring skin grafts basically to repair the skin damage. Yes. Okay. And incident number 4.
Oh, this is the real bad one.
This is the real bad one. So
this is the radiation sort of nightmare story.
Yeah. So if everyone hadn't sort of checked up at this point, this is content warning, medical radiation injury.
March 3rd, 21st, 1986.
So Voyne Ray Cox, a 40-year-old gentleman, attends the East Texas Cancer Center in Tyler, Texas, for post-surgical radiotherapy for a tumor on the back. It doesn't mention what the tumor is. This is we use it for melanoma. We use it for sort of larger squamous cell carcinomas. That sort of melanoma obviously is melanocytes. Squamous cells are the sort of cells of the skin, but we tend to treat those with surgery. So this is might have been something like a melanoma. We don't know. The patient was prescribed a dose of a 22 mega electron volt electron beam therapy to the left upper back, and the patient at that point was to deliver a total fraction of 180 rads, with repeat doses over the next several weeks, totaling 6,000 rads. So we've already talked about 6,000 rads, in one go to your whole body.
Very bad.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Very bad. 6,000.
Whereas if you do it spread out on the sort of 8 radiotherapy fractions and your 9th one is free, sort of card stamp thing, it's not as bad.
Yeah, exactly. So he was this was his 9th cycle. So this, again, like the sort of very like the first, this is someone who knows what to expect. They go into the room, they get sort of position, they sort of lie down or sit up or sort of get into the place where they need to be to sort of have their therapy. The beam's sort of all set up and then off they go. So again, the operator here is behind a heavy shielded door down a corridor. There are no windows between the treatment room and the operator suite, and the means of monitoring, there's a video camera, so sort of 1980s scan line quality internal video, and an intercom system. However, on this occasion, the intercom system had broken.
Oh, great! Sort of an extra little Final Destination twist.
Yeah. So the patient was positioned, the operator exited, closed the shielded door between the treatment suite and the control room, entered the prescription data on the terminal. On reviewing, noted she'd inadvertently typed X for X-ray mode. So she promptly skipped back up to the modality field, when we had our little screen earlier, and changed it to E for electron beam. Everything else was correct. Hit the key to proceed.
Should have changed it to G for good.
Yeah. No, that's the one that changes your gender.
Oh.
No, fuck.
They don't allow that in the UK.
Yeah.
Fucking pussies.
The G rays, yeah.
Got hit by the gender beam.
Forced feminization.
So on this occasion, the machine entered a treatment pause and returned the words. Remember, the operator the operator manual has no description of the errors. It returned the words malfunction 54. Great.
Okay. Could be anything.
The dosage report on the machine, however, suggested substantial underdose of radiation compared to what was prescribed.
Oh, good.
This is why it's always a good idea to have an OBD2 reader with you when you're doing this.
Yeah, never know if you're gonna need it. You need to
I brought this Geiger counter from home, and I'm holding it in between me and the fucking thing.
It just flashes the check engine light.
Flash the Therac ECU. Tuning the Therac. I want the pops and bangs mod for my Therac-25.
Yeah. So this machine, as we've said, this is a finicky machine. This does this all the time, and it paused it, and she pressed the P key to override the pause and proceed with the dose as prescribed.
Yeah, no big
the
deal.
Machine malfunction 54.
Oh, that's weird. Go press P again.
Well, you would press. She was going to press P again, but then was alarmed by the sound of the audibly upset, disturbed patient banging on the operator room door.
Oh fuck!
Not good.
Shit,
yeah,
that's not what you want.
Next slide, I think. Yes. So this again. We'll just go back to our setup here to remind ourselves of the situation here. So we've got operator terminal sealed away, intercom that's not working. Patient has come off of the treatment table, and as they're coming off the treatment table, the operator presses P again.
He got hit with a fucking glancing blow by this thing as well.
Yes,
This is why it
sort
wouldn't
of
be me, right?
implied.
Because you put me in a situation like that, I'm like, they find me a melted puddle of goo because she's done it 5 times, and I've been like, well, I don't want to be a bother. I'm not going to sit up. She did say to sit still, so like,
Yeah,
you know, whatever.
and
This guy clearly has just like flown out of the thing.
yeah. So this is so he knows that this is not normal. But basically, he sort of felt what he reported as a severe pain, like someone had poured hot coffee on his back when the operator engaged the device for the first time, and he was rising from the table to alert her when the second dose was delivered, describing severe pain in his arm and a sensation like his hand was leaving his body.
What the fuck? Jesus Christ. So he
Don't
just
like that.
stood up, he had his arm in the way of it, and we just accidentally sent this man's hands atoms to fucking Jupiter.
This is
like fucking
horrendous.
orbiting
Jesus,
the
yes.
rings of Saturn, and he's just like, okay, just still attached to it, you know?
So the patient was seen by the medical team on site, who sort of noted reddening in the treatment area.
Jesus.
As he wasn't unwell in himself, was discharged home because
For a minute, you know?
Because they said, well, you know, this is you know, this is a safe established device, we've used this for, you know, years. This is, you know, there must have been a freak sort of electrical shock. However,
from a Tesla coil that's been embedded in the machine. Like, where is this electricity coming from?
I mean, I think sort of part of the thing is that, you know, documentation is limited, but I think sort of from the point of view of someone who has sort of been trained at medical school, never been sort of trained, you know, although sort of, you know, having some additional experience in radiation bits and pieces, but, you know, you don't expect to see a radiation injury. What was far more, you know, what you think is, well, this is an electrical device. An electric shock's far more common, and what they've reported sounds like an electric shock. But, you know, their cardiac function is okay. They've not got an arrhythmia, and you know, the treatment sort of severe electric shock. So if there's no arrhythmia, then, you know, the patient's otherwise well, then they can be discharged home.
We know they were just in a radiation machine, but
it
probably wasn't a radiation injury, right, guys?
Well, no, because this is a radiation machine that's very safe. The previous versions of it were very safe. The manufacturer has just upgraded this machine 6 months earlier, and it is now 5-fold safer than it was before the upgrade.
Not just 5-fold, 5 orders of magnitude.
Sorry, 5 orders of magnitude safer than before the upgrade. So the sort of it's the kind of thing whereby it's sort of, you know, you know, in medicine we often talk about sort of like, you know, if you see sort of hoof prints, sort of expect horses not zebras kind of thing. So I suspect that, you know, it's very difficult to speculate on a sort of at this point sort of 40-year-old medical case for which I don't have any notes. But
there's also very little that they could have done. Like,
yes.
had they immediately been able to go, this guy has suffered a catastrophic radiation injury. I mean, the thing you do at that point is you fucking roll your chair over to the drawn hand in one of those "so you're gonna die" pamphlets.
Yeah. Give the guy a cigarette.
Yeah.
Manufacturer claims this device will have one accident in the lifetime of the observable universe.
and this was it, so we can all relax, you know?
So tragically, over the next several months, the patient lost use of the left arm, and several bouts of nausea, vomiting, developed radiation-induced myelitis. Now, myelitis is nerve inflammation in the spinal cord, and his left arm became paralyzed entirely, as did his vocal cords. This is just horrific. In addition, he was severely immunocompromised. So sort of, you know, and then sort of had opportunistic herpes virus infections of skin in the affected areas, lost bladder and bowel control, and died 5 months afterwards with what was later estimated to be a dose of between 16,500 and 25,000 rads having been delivered.
And presumably not knowing why as well.
Yeah.
Like that also sort of rankles with me, is the idea that not only did you like kill the guy horribly, but you killed the guy in a sort of a horrible, confusing way.
Yes. It's awful. This, I mean, as I say, this, but it's sort of combined with the sort of horror of the, intercom being sort of out. This is the real sort of, this is the nightmare scenario for any sort of medical treatment gone wrong, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a radiologist or in that field at all, like hearing the guy bang on the inside of the door, that's got to be the worst thing that you can imagine happening.
And I'd say from what it sounds like, this it's not recorded who the operator was, and I think for the sort of purposes of that their anonymity has been maintained, and given
sure,
sort
good,
of good, given the role they have to sort of play later in sort of, which is kind of fairly crucial, then I think it's quite they were doing their job as they were routinely expected to do their job. They were working with the machine within the parameters they've been told to operate the machine, and for sort of both from a patient and a clinician perspective, this is absolutely the sort of the worst case scenario that could ever happen in medicine. Because it's sort of there's a varying to degrees to which sort of there is a sort of Hippocratic oath as such, but first do no harm, does to a greater extent remains the the foundational principle of medicine. In the case of the Therac-25 device here, this was used to successfully treat other patients later that day.
Okay.
Again, but taken out of service the following day for testing. They flew a AECL engineer down from Canada to try and reproduce the malfunction 54 error.
Did we ever find out what the malfunction 54 error
malfunction
is?
54 is very helpful. It tells the operator that the patient has either received too little or too much radiation.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
That really narrows it down. Thank God.
I was about to say, I mean, that eliminates one number.
Yeah.
Reminds me that a lot of NASA software had to develop like different states for off-scale high versus off-scale low, because if you just say this is not a reportable, like this is not a number I can return for this query, it leads you to this sort of ambiguity.
Yeah. So AECL basically still at this point flatly denied it was possible for the device to overdose a patient. The electrical systems were checked. We were still sort of functioning on this is an electrical system error. But the machine was determined to be properly grounded and that could not have delivered an electrical shock to the patient. And the machine was returned to service a few weeks later on the 7th of April, 1986.
I mean, it's still busily, treating cancers.
Yeah, it's still treating cancers,
presumably successfully. So
yeah, and that's
the guy didn't die of cancer.
Yeah, he just got a Chernobyl dropped on his face, but it's fine.
Yes. However,
April 11th, 1986.
So 4 days after the device has been returned to service, another patient, Vernon Kidd, attended for cancer treatment on the face. We have very limited other clinical information. The same operator that had treated the previous patient set up the machine for therapy.
Oh, great. What's the worst part of your body you can imagine getting this malfunctioning thing fired at?
Taint.
No, it's face. It's face.
Face or taint, whichever. Yeah.
So again, this is one of the more extensively documented incidents, sort of for better in terms of this helped to sort of uncover what was going on, but worse in terms of, again, a heavy content warning for a medically sustained radiation injury. The same operator as previously as well, having sort of set this patient up for treatment. The intercom had been fixed. There's one.
Okay.
It was like,
saving sort of grace of the system. The intercom had been fixed, and as it entered previously, she entered X for X-ray before proceeding to treat. Noticed her inputs, went back, corrected this to E for electron beam mode, commenced the treatment. Over the now repaired intercom, she heard a loud noise from the machine, with the terminal once again displaying malfunction 54. Also audible, the sounds of a distressed patient moaning for help. The operator entered the room, helped see this was on the face, so sort of you get the person in position, and then you have to for sort of a lot of therapeutic and diagnostic procedures. Sometimes you need to sort of keep people in position, so sometimes you have to sort of lightly tape
Do some
people in
light
position.
bondage, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. For medical reasons.
Yeah, Alice, for medical reasons.
I'm sorry if that appeared prurient of me. Yeah.
He complained feeling fire on the side of his face, and the medical physicist attended.
Ooh, fireplay.
Having had the sort of ongoing investigation for the last several weeks, the medical physicist was very interested in seeing what had gone on here, and got a statement from the patient. And the statement was that he saw an intense flash of light.
Oh, that's bad.
No, you never want to see that.
I want to see that.
Never want to see it. Look at the pretty blue. What is it? Look at the pretty blue trolley, not the pretty blue light.
Yes.
Yeah. Describing the sound like that of frying eggs. Leveson, Nancy Leveson was sort of has further documentation on this, and she reports in her appendix that he repeatedly was asking what happened to me and was extremely distressed.
Yeah, I bet. Jesus.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what happened to him was radiation encephalopathy. With
Jesus.
So became increasingly delirious and confused, entering a coma. Because they were onto something is wrong with this machine. They had an autopsy performed demonstrating acute high dose radiation injury to the temporal lobe, and this gentleman, Vernon Kidd, has the dubious honor of being the first person documented to have died due to therapeutic radiation therapy.
Wow. I mean, and horribly too.
Yeah, pretty bad.
So as we mentioned, this is another medical physicist. Next slide, please. This is there is some associated trivia.
A summer story as people get wildly drunk in my home.
Yeah.
Not sure if you could hear that at home, viewers, but goddamn.
Yeah, you might be able to. I can hear it.
Yeah.
Can't do anything about it.
So this time, this is the Tyler East Medical. So this is that center, the Tyler East Cancer Center's Fritz Hager, who I've tried to find sort of pictures of people, and I searched Fritz Hager in Tyler, Texas, and returned a picture of this young gentleman, who is American Idol's top 5 contestant, Fritz Hager III. So
grandson? Question mark?
Grandson? Question mark. Unless there is an abundance of Fritz Hagers in Tyler, Texas, specifically Tyler, Texas.
Lots of Germans in Texas.
That is true.
And some Czechs.
Potentially some relation, as far as I can establish.
Well, I'm going to be picturing the guy, the radiation.
Yeah, I mean,
looking like
given the amount of documentation that this guy did into what went on with this is the sort of kind of largely responsible for documenting what one of the major flaws of the system was, and he and the operator who'd been involved in both cases pulled it's not specifically sort of said in the documentation, but you get the impression that sort of all-nighters were pulled trying to replicate the error.
Right, yeah.
I have a small, perhaps nonsensical thing, which is I hope it was the operator's unwitting fault, because that seems less cruel than it being random chance both times.
The key thing here is that this is a very experienced operator. So they have they have been using the Therac-25 and presumably possibly previous versions of the machine or other similar machines. So they were very, very quick. I mean, you imagine someone who's using the system day in, day out to treat 20 patients per day, 100 patients in a week. Your hours on the machine build up to the fact that you can you rapidly edit stuff and you go, oh, okay, fine. How many times a day do you sort of accidentally typo something? Oh yeah, this is an electron beam. This isn't X-ray. This is electron beam. Quickly correct the error. Off we go. So This was so they recreated the error basically by achieving this by rapidly editing the X-ray modality to electron beam in the dose setup screen. And because they were so quick at entering it and making the corrections, they could both the operator and the physicist could reproduce the error at will. The AECL
So it's a timing problem.
it's a timing problem. So the
Mm.
AECL engineer the following day was unable to reproduce the error.
He's like hunting and pecking on the keyboard. Or whatever,
Yeah.
and
So as Leveson says, the ETCC physicist explained the procedure had to be performed quite rapidly. Eventually, someone at AECL found a fast enough typist to reproduce the error on a test machine, where engineers reported a center of field dose of around 25,000 rads.
Jesus.
250 grays. The frying sound was determined to be so a while ago now we mentioned that the each of the treatment heads has an ion chamber which records the dose at the exit point, and these were completely saturated. So it's
fuck.
so the frying sound, the frying sound, at least for sort of some respite for the frying sound was not patient related.
No,
the
burning dosimeter.
Burning the completely saturated ion chambers that every single ion in them saturated with a lot of radiation. In litigation arising,
like the ion detector just returns yes.
Whoops.
Yes.
Yes, ion present.
This just says liable.
So in one of the cases, and I think it was the previous incident number 4, there was already a litigation arising from that, and AECL representatives admitted they had been aware of the cursor up problem in other centres over a year earlier after previous incidents, but thought the software issues had been fixed.
How many previous incidents aren't there here?
Yes, and that's the thing. This is a device that's going to be used every day. We there are 6 incidents that we're aware of. We are up to.
I mean, it's hard to hide radiation injuries, but on the other hand, with people who are very sick already, that
I mean, that's one of the things as well. I think confounds some of the issues that people who are very, very sick already with cancer. But some of these people, I think, and then the issues where this is kind of picked up are where people kind of had cancers that were maybe less severe, or but then had horrific consequences from their therapy. So we mentioned that the FDA had sort of been involved at this point. At this point, the FDA really gets involved. So these 2 incidents in rapid succession, reported by the Texas Health Department to the FDA anyway, despite the fact that there's not a reporting mechanism. They sort of just kept calling the FDA until they sort of created one.
Someone answered them.
Yes. So ACL's initial response, that they made 3 days after the second incident, was that all current device users were to refrain from using the up arrow to edit treatment functions.
Oh, okay. All right, I like this. I like this BSDS solution.
No, even better. So that no one accidentally presses the up arrow. The up arrow was required to be removed from the terminal.
Yes, now we're getting serious about access control. If you don't want people to use the button, take the button off the machine
the fuck off,
and lock it in a cupboard somewhere.
Take the button off the keyboard, tape the key micro switch over so it's in the open position, and thus only able to re-enter the prescription information from scratch in the case of an error.
Beautiful.
So far in terms of the corrective actions issued by the thing, we've sort of messed around with the micro switches, and we've got a screwdriver out to lever the key off the keyboard.
This is what how many $1 million machine here?
Do you know what? The one thing I didn't look up was how much this thing cost. I probably should have done that. But lots of money.
State of the art piece of medical equipment.
State of the art, computer controlled.
Hold on.
decent
I
amount of-
got it. But Price is Right rules. What do you got?
$2 million.
Are we playing with inflation or without?
Without.
$500,000.
I'm gonna go with 750,000. Yeah.
Dr. Tom's got it. It's $1 million.
Oh,
I went too high. I don't know how much these things cost. But quite literally $1 million.
hmm.
Damn it, dude.
So the FDA were unsatisfied with this response and
Everyone's a critic.
declares the Therac-25 defective on May 2nd, 1986, requiring that the AECL produce a corrective action plan. And then shortly after this, we enter, because this is May, and then sort of in medicine, then sort of June through August, before the sort of new term of, this is sort of, when the sort of term of medical school kind of tends to kick out, and sort of medical training tends to sort of kick out, and before the new input sort of comes in October, then this is conference season. Yes.
Well, lots to talk about,
Yes. So this has been installed at 11 sites, and a users group convenes at the American Association of Physicists in Medicine. So
to ask some questions like, why does this kill my patients?
Yes.
So this is this is where our previous Tim Still from Hamilton and Fritz Hager and other operators could all talk to each other about the ways in which the Therac-25 seems to be going wrong, and the safety modifications they've been forced to make, such as retrofitting their own safety hardware interlock, and bully the attending AECL representative.
Oh, that guy's gonna have an interesting time at that conference.
Yeah.
Being sort of put the question, why has my colleague had sort of one of the worst experiences you can have as a medical professional and inadvertently killed a patient horribly due to your company's product?
How would you like to be beaten to death with a shovel?
Yeah, I mean, I think
$1 million.
Alice is going to be somewhat familiar with this, but there is a way of documenting things in medical legal note keeping.
The question was asked in a sort of a
Yes.
robust tone.
So-
I put it to him that he had assisted in the murder of my patients.
So this is sort of meeting notes that were recorded and then recounted in Levison's appendix, which was, there was a general complaint by all users about the lack of information propagation. The users were not happy about receiving incomplete information. The AECL representative countered by stating that AECL does not wish to spread rumors, and that the AECL has no policy to, quote, keep things quiet, unquote.
You sound like you don't, bud.
Yeah.
The consensus among the users is that improvement is necessary.
Yeah, I bet.
So
I
we
kind of
were-
get the sense of that consensus.
Millimeters from an outright brawl here is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
With the chair. Get him with the chair.
So not only sort of content with bullying the AECL representative in person, they put together a zine.
Oh, well, what's the ACES? Just
Yeah.
anyone could do it.
So
Yes.
there were two issues of the Therac-25 user group zine. The first of which outlined the first of which contained commentary by Tim Still, the physicist at Kenison, where the first incident occurred, outlining 8 significant issues he felt were present in the Therac-25 software systems. Second issue expanded on just one of those, a function relating to the head position microswitches further, and the problems that potentially arose. Again, I would love to find this. This is something that is almost certainly lost to time, because this was 11
Like
centers.
mimeographed, yeah.
Yeah, so sort of 11 centers, of which sort of
Mimeographed.
half the people involved are sort of probably dead, and this there may be a copy in someone's attic somewhere, but if we ever see it, that would be amazing, but not in the scope of this recording. Next slide, please.
Yeah, what actually went wrong
So,
with the software?
So, the Therac-25 software was developed using the Therac-6 and the Therac-20 operating software as a base. Entirely proprietary system, created an assembly language with BDP-11. And as far as could be established, so remember we parked the phrase people.
Yes.
As far as can be established, was written by a single anonymous programmer.
Person. This is something for the software person to deal with.
The software person.
Yes. In assembly?
In assembly.
So is Chris Sawyer.
Yes, Chris Sawyer. I was going to make that joke. God damn
it. Programming was different back in those days.
Yeah.
You could do the sort of the Margaret Hamilton thing of, Chris Sawyer programmed all of the, all 11,000 lines of code necessary to horribly kill a patient by hand.
So, when the initial X is entered, the software starts setting up the electron gun in readiness to deliver we've mentioned this before. When you put in an X, it defaults to 25 mega electron volts of X-ray photons.
Yeah, and then it has to rotate the like head of the machine into the sort of the go hook position for X-ray.
Yeah, and also set up the magnets inside to bend the beam around to hit the target. During the magnet setup process, the software clears all of the internal data several times. So if you make changes to the prescribed treatment modality within that approximately 8-second window, it displays the corrected prescription information on the operator screen. However, the software has configured the magnets within the linear accelerator to produce a particle accelerator beam at the intensity intended for X-ray generation, not electron beam therapy.
I like that.
So they dug out the software for the Therac-6 and the Therac-20, and it couldn't produce the same error. But because of the hardware interlocks, then they didn't have any incidents because the beam didn't fire or a fuse would blow.
This is like not not something that comes up until you make it purely software, and then it's firing like an electron beam at the intensity required for an X-ray beam, which is going to draw off 99% of that power anyway. It's heat.
But it's
gotcha.
Yes, it's not doing that. It's firing it through the electron window.
I'm surprised it didn't just straight up explode.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a testament to particle accelerators, right? As a science that, like, hey, you can make one of these, it'll do it, no problems. The machine works fine.
Yeah.
I regret to inform you that I have to drop off at this point. It being 8 o'clock.
Sorry, Liam.
Okay.
No worries. Yeah, I'll just keep the window open.
Yeah, okay. Tom, are you good on time, or do you want to like do we want to like record this in 2 parts? What do we feel like? Just if you're flagging, I don't want to like keep you.
I mean,
for, like,
I've got
3 hours.
I've not got many more pages left of my spiel here. We're kind of in the home stretch.
So we got 7 more slides, and then we got safety third, which we can skip. And then,
yeah.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
Good night,
Liam.
Take care, Liam. So the investigators noted that basically the speed at which the experienced operator could make the changes to the prescription information could,
that's
with an experienced
8 seconds.
Yeah,
to hit an up key and an E key is not that much.
No, and but we're sort of they've got to skip through all of the previous lines up to the thing, and this is someone who's very, very experienced and can just be like click back down to the bottom line, go. So they basically said the speed at which they can operate meant that you could make the changes within that 8-second window, but also because they're so quick at operating this, it's kind of the faster you type, the more errors you may introduce. So and because the system is so finicky, they're used to operating with this thing just going, It's paused again.
And this feels like one of those cultural things where it's like, I remember reading something about it was a fighter pilot's memoir from the Second World War, where his friend's like he can't quite get to grips with the idea of like dogfighting. His brain doesn't work that way. What he's good at is like flying very straight and level despite distractions. And what they eventually tell him is, go and be a bomber pilot, go and do that instead, at which he's very successful. And it's like, it feels like this is one of those applications where what you want is sort of like extreme consistency and like thoughtfulness rather than like speed of action. But if you've got 20 patients to see that day, then it doesn't, there's different sets of incentives.
Yes. Exactly. This is, I mean, very relevant to sort of the current state of healthcare in the UK, but that's probably for another time.
Sure. I imagine much harder to be sort of that kind of very deliberative personality.
Yeah, you've got to be you've got to be on it the whole time, and the amount of time you've got to be on it is rapidly increasing. But that is the way it is. So I've got a hard mode version of what exactly is going on here. This is sort of taken straight from Leveson. So next slide, please.
What is wrong with computer brackets? Alice will not understand this slide.
Yes, I mean, I'd say this is not my wheelhouse, and this is me sort of looking through this, reading this several times, and then sort of trying to sort of approximate it from my own sort of knowledge. But so you have the monitor task, which is called treat, and this has 8 subroutines. Data ent being the data entry task, and it communicates with the keyboard handler task. That's the bit that tells you what keys you put in, and that shares a variable in the data entry called data entry complete. When the prescription data has been entered, the flags change to denote this, and when it's set, the treat subroutine moves to variable 3, which is set up test. It exits that, and then restarts the treat subroutine. In the original version of the software, to determine whether the data entry was flagged as complete depended on the position of the cursor on the command line at the bottom of the terminal screen, but not when it had been moved subsequently.
So it's not intended for you to edit this again. If it what the programmer has in mind is you put in the prescription details and you get it right. If you get it wrong, you ditch the whole thing, start process from like beginning.
Yes, and then it's not entered again if it's been flagged as complete. It would usually force the technician to enter the prescription data except when X-ray photon mode is selected. So this is why the 8 seconds is quite quick. It's got to go through. They've got to go through and put every bit of prescription information in. If it's electron beam, if it's X-ray, it just defaults to 25 mega electron volts and skips back down to the bottom. So this is the portion of the software that sets another task in motion called hand, which sets the position of the treatment head. But because the data entry has not been exited and won't be entered again in this cycle, there's no way in the software to detect the incompatibility between the treatment information entered and the treatment head setting. So then the final bit of this software is called a subroutine called magnet, and that's where the 8 second delay is relevant. So this has an artificial delay introduced to account for the time it sets all of those electron magnets up to deliver the beam. And that's set up using a routine called p-time. It's cycled through several times and checks with the keyboard handler to see if there are any edits made. Of course, where it executes, because it clears that flag, then it never detects that there's been an edit made and defaults back to the data entry. So giving you the 8 second window.
Like watching a gun being assembled. It's horrible.
Yeah. Leaves a 8 second window. It's possible to edit the modality and dose, have it be displayed correctly on the terminal screen, not be recognized by the software, and then resulting in the 2 overdose incidents that were at East Texas.
That's such a easy thing to miss. That
no, it's software. It's perfect.
Yeah. So the the radiation scientists, they are continually bullying AECL throughout all of this. The FDA are similarly scathing with internal memoranda. Leveson managed to get hold of some internal memoranda for her report and indicated that they possibly omitted awareness of previous radiation safety incidents involving the Therac-25 having settled out of court the injury sustained by Katie Yarbrough, that's the first victim in Marietta, Georgia. And insufficient detail and clarity of their quality assurance process, with no response provided to the Canadian Radiation Protection Board after they requested further details of software revision and requirements. So this is Gord. So they didn't reply.
Mhm.
So they
Did you
Didn't
just
answer
say?
Gord's emails.
Did you just
The
say
Canadiation,
Canadiation? Yeah.
That's what they should call it. That's like,
Yeah.
there's always a background level of Canadians around, right?
Yes.
And but then above that, there's like an error, like a point at which you might stochastically be exposed to a Canadian in a way that increases your risk of consuming like maple syrup or like
saying a.
Yeah. Yes. So they ignored. They basically, because they settled the first incident out of court, they didn't. They were settled out of court. You can't. We settled this out of court.
To get mad at us.
You can't get mad at us. We settled.
Yes.
AECL intended to keep the obscure and undocumented error codes, which the FDA
liked them. I'm not sure why, but they did.
FDA demanded they change to provide more explicit warnings, and then they did not plan to do any additional QA to ensure exact copying of the updated software to the installed devices, or test any further updates to software to ensure safety.
Just remarkably lackadaisical about this.
So they produced
fine. Don't worry about it.
A revised corrective action plan was published on December 22nd, 1986. This implemented suspension of treatment if a dose error was detected, and a plan to implement meaningful error messages.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
we're going to make a plan.
We're going to make a plan. Make a plan to have a committee to sort of work out what is meaningful in the context of an error message.
What was so difficult about error messages at this point? I mean, I guess I understand that now in an age of everything where it's like, oopsie whoopsie, the computer made a fucky wucky. You might not want to have to delve back through error in block 0x whatever, but this is it's such a weird point to be insistent about.
Why not give the operators a printout of the error code documentation? I feel like that's a nice, quick interim solution here.
This was the revised plan, and everything was fine at this point. All the major safety issues had been addressed, and the federal oversight had been successful.
Please don't say a date now.
January 17th, 1987.
Fuck.
Yes, this has a fake ending. The Therac-25.
It's it comes back from the dead to kill someone else.
It was not done yet. This is so. On this case, an unnamed patient attends the Yakima Valley Memorial Hospital for treatment of a carcinoma. Again, no further information about the cancer itself. A second patient of the day. And they are intended to have 2 film exposures. So basically, they do a low dose low dose X-ray with a film underneath the patient to sort of say, have we got the right place? And then a high dose X-ray treatment with a intended total dose of 86 rats. So very low dose. So this is the 80s, and so taking an X-ray requires you actually placing a physical X-ray photographic film under the patient. Perform the first.
Still does in some places.
Still does in some places.
You can get Russian, we used to be able to get Russian X-ray film relatively readily that you can make some very interesting film exposures with, because it doesn't have a halation layer or whatever it is.
So they did the first, returned to the treatment room, set the beam for the second. Upon returning, they sort of set the beam up for the second X-ray, did the second X-ray, rotated the treatment head into the field light position to check the positioning for therapeutic treatment. And at this point, they inadvertently left the second X-ray, the second exposed film under the patient. These things happen. You're treating sort of multiple patients. You've kind of got 2 films. You've taken 1 film. They left the X-ray film under. So we subject. So we have the hand command on the terminal in the operator room, and you can also position the treatment head using a hand control as well. So they in this case they set the dose using the handheld unit, went back to the terminal room, displayed beam ready. Having entered all the prescription information, the operator pressed the B key for beam ready.
Oh,
again, B for beam, P for pause, E for
literalists, Canadian literalists,
all the way through. The beam came on, but no dose information was displayed. The operator in deposition stated an error message may briefly have been displayed. However, the treatment was simply paused. And as the operators are used to doing at this point, they pressed the P key to resume treatment. The machine paused again, and so we have the upgraded error messages here. This one was flatness.
What? What could that possibly mean? Have in like the past couple of hours, have we heard of anything that you could express in terms of like topographical flatness? Like,
I think this is something to do with so we sort of talk about beam flattening in
okay.
so I suspect it's something to do with that. But again, this is the supposedly upgraded error system, and this is this is the sort of errors that we're getting. But the thing is that the machine only displayed dosing information for 2 X-ray films, 7 rats. The operator went to unpause the treatment for a third time, but heard the patient moaning from the treatment room over the intercom and went to check on them. They reported a sensation of pain and burning in the chest, and over the next several days that developed into a burn with the characteristic stripe pattern, matching slots in the blocking tray. Very similar to that seen at the previous Yakima Valley incident in December of 1985. So sort of about 2 years, sort of year or so before. AECL initially recommended users should manually confirm the position of the treatment. Again, this is a you problem, not an us problem, before positioning with treatment.
Of course.
An engineer was dispatched from Ottawa. In the meantime, medical physicists at Yakima Valley conducted their own investigations, and they managed to achieve production of X-ray beams in the field light position.
Oh, good. So there's nothing attenuating that.
No,
whatsoever.
so there's no electron beam controller. There is no tungsten. This is just coming through the
diagnostic light.
The diagnostic light. Yeah. So they tested this onto X-ray film, and they compared it with this. Again, another fantastic bit of fortunately, they actually left the X-ray film under the patient, because they were able to compare the X-ray film that had inadvertently been left under the patient affected with the simulation films that they ran, and they noticed a match in the patterns displayed on the two. So again, another huge win here for medical physicists knowing what they're doing. And
radiation detective work.
Yes, there's some fantastic detective work here. The patient was determined to be delivered a dose up to 10,000 rads, and they died in April of '87 relating to complications from the radiation exposure. While they had advanced cancer, the family brought a lawsuit again to AECL that indicated that the radiation exposure had hastened their death, and again, this was settled out of court.
Naturally.
The AECL determined this could not be entirely due to hardware error, and determined the unit was awaiting an update to the software following the conclusion of the FDA corrective actions. So it hadn't had yet the software update from the East Texas instance. However, this fault was an entirely separate quirk of the operator software.
Oh my
Incredible.
God. A third one.
Second
fault.
Okay. Yeah, second sort of because they think that the Hamilton one was probably the same thing as well.
Okay.
Because of the remember that in Hamilton, Ontario, that's where the patient had the sort of line pattern. So they suspect the similar thing may have happened, but that was never determined. So how this determines, once again, we're going back to this diagram, it determines the position by the micro switches. They'd already had the hardware revision following the incident in Hamilton. It made modifications to the hardware. Software was unchanged, and a different failure mechanism was the culprit here. So this is, again, I think we're on to hard mode now. Because what, next slide, please, happens here is
what goes wrong in computer
what goes wrong in computer 2, more hard mode. The software flaw here is that is what's referred to as a race condition error. So there's multiple competing processes occurring at the same time. Position of
different timing problems.
A different timing problem.
It's all time related, it seems.
Yeah, this one relates to the position of the head, matching that in the prescription data, and it's got a housekeeping process called LMTC, LMT check, which sets up a single bit in one shared variable called $mal, and if this is set to 0, the code enters the setup done stage of the treat algorithm. It does this by working through an 8-bit counter called class 3. It increases by 1 each time the setup test portion of T-phase runs. This is going through multiple setup runs, as we talked about earlier.
Mhm.
It's an 8-bit counter, so the maximum it can count to is from 0 to 255. So if someone were coincidentally to press the set button on the hand control, at the exact moment that variable rolls over again to 0, the software wouldn't enter the head position check mode and would instead display that the beam was ready to fire.
That's so weird. And it's purely like dumb luck that you have to do this simultaneously.
Yes, you have to do this simultaneously, which is why this machine was used. It happened on 2, possibly 3 occasions out of what is likely hundreds and hundreds of uses, just because someone happened to hit the button at exactly the right moment at which that bit flips over from 255 to 0.
This is such a
I mean, statistically though,
thing.
that's like 0.3% of times, which is a lot. That's a lot of times for the software to run in such a way that it kills the patient.
Yeah. So I think we're post 3 hours on this point now. I think we can sort of wrap things up a little bit. So there was a back and forth with the FDA, essentially at this point, multiple lawsuits that were settled out of court, which is why we have very little information. The extensive sort of hardware changes were made to the device, and
it's too expensive to like just throw them all out. I presume you have to find a way to like fix them and keep them running.
Yeah, exactly. So they had to sort of make multiple sort of alterations. The hardware, what they basically did was sort of retrofit this machine back to being essentially the Therac-25. What they had to do was they introduced hardware interlocks on the therapy head positioning system. They implemented a turntable potentiometer to independently monitor the therapy head position. I think we're on next slide if we haven't got that. Yes, we have. Okay, good, right. Yeah. The other thing that had to be implemented was a dead man switch in the operator room. So to actually make the thing work, you had to have your foot on the pedal, otherwise it would not fire. A hardware shutdown circuit was introduced. Independent hardware control shutdown circuit. Hardware interlock on then the bending magnet, so ensure that it can't fire when the tungsten target until it's in the correct position. Limiting the editing keys to cursor up, backspace, and return, and hardware interlocks again from preventing the beam from turning on in the field light.
Hey, but you can put your up arrow key back on the keyboard now.
You can find it. Dig it out of the cupboard, and you can take the tape off, and you can stick the up arrow back on. They eliminated the software errors in the East Texas Yakima Valley instance. They changed the error messages to be meaningful, although no description has been made of what meaningful means in the circumstance. They had an additional software shutdown mechanism, and what were described by Levison as 23 other changes to improve reliability of the software. They finally, after 6 instances, acknowledged that any errors resulting in a treatment pause would instead suspend the treatment. And they
sometimes you got to like inconvenience your user a little bit more.
And prevented the sort of on-site copying of code. So all the code had to sort of, they had to sort of centralize the sort of code so that all the updates were sort of applied simultaneously. What Ed Miller, the director of the Division of Standards Enforcement at the Center for Devices and Radiological Health at the FDA, wrote in 1987 was that the FDA has performed extensive review of the Therac-25 software and hardware safety systems. We cannot say with absolute certainty that all software problems that might result in improper dose have been found and eliminated.
Oh, cool. Okay.
However, we are confident that the hardware and software safety features recently added will prevent future catastrophic consequences of failure. That was Inshallah.
Yeah.
No further Therac-25 instance were reported.
30 years with everyone watching it like a hawk. These things presumably are now at the end of their lives anyway.
Yeah, I mean, likelihood is these were probably all, again, these cost $1 million each, but then in terms of litigation costs, there probably reaches a point whereby it's cheaper to replace it with a unit that doesn't cause catastrophic radiation injury, rather than
You're always going to
proceed
have
with the
those
fact that it might.
one or two patients are going to walk in the room. They're going to see Therac-25 printed on the unit, and they're going to be like, "Nope,
Oh yeah.
I want a second
No,
opinion."
no, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, the good news is that this like is now enough of a case study for like software engineering that
Yes.
I would hope and pray, right, that this leads to sort of like a change in mindset of how you write software for applications of
Yes.
something that can kill a person.
And basically, the software was largely all of the tests were on the hardware.
Mhm.
So they sort of wrote the software, but they didn't, the errors weren't documented. The error conditions weren't documented. They didn't go through the same QA procedures as the hardware, and one of sort of Levison's critiques of the software is that it's massively over-engineered. So it's too complex for what it's supposed to be doing. What it's supposed to be doing is set up the electron beam, change the mode, fire the beam. And what it's trying to do is kind of keep juggling sort of multiple sort of variables that are sort of calling back on each other. And it's sort of, you're creating the conditions for which this can fail by introducing these sort of race condition errors, because you're relying on the fact that people don't do weird things with software, which people do all the time. We talked about speed running earlier, and effectively speed running is sort of ways of just like, very, reproducibly breaking software in accidental ways that are not supposed to happen. And that's sort of kind of the thing that sort of happened here, in that these errors occurred because, as the sort of case, let's say with speed running, that, okay, if you are an average person, if you're the average engineer who came in to sort of inspect the device in East Texas, they couldn't reproduce the error. The person who could reproduce the error first was the operator, and they could really reproduce the error. And then the medical physicist, and then eventually the engineer, having sort of been shown how to do it. But it sort of takes a lot of practice.
Once they believe them.
It
seems they're very reluctant to do as well.
Yeah.
It's just like refusal to actually trust the operator of your product when they say that it has like a failure condition. You don't anticipate.
And let's face it, every medical physicist that was involved, and every radiation protection officer that was involved with the these incidents, cottoned on to what was going on, and it was really a sort of a race to reproduce the errors before there was legal consequences, or sort of things were sort of squirreled away because things were settled out of court. And it's only thanks to sort of the extensive documentation that was made by these people that we've got any idea of what went on in the first place, because the existence of this thing has been scrubbed. It has been scrubbed from existence.
Barely has a Wikipedia article.
Yeah.
I'll say that it has like three sections, of which it's sort of presented as a mild case study.
I think sorry,
this incident always brought up like a at least something I thought it did, which apparently it didn't, bring up the idea of professional licensing for software engineers, right? Where you work on like a really safety critical system like this. If you're a civil engineer and you pulled something that did this, you would go to jail.
Sure.
But if you're a software engineer, it's like, okay, we made this very complex system that we said is 100% reliable, and it results in several deaths. Well, whatever. And I thought after this, you started to get like a movement for professional licensing for software engineers who work in these sorts of safety critical but otherwise relatively simple systems. This has not been the case. I think in total there have been 44 software PE licenses issued in the entire United States. So it's not common. It's still, you have, and I guess that's how you can get away with things like Tesla autopilot or the full self-driving stuff, where the car homes in on kids and kills them. And there's no one experiences any liability from this.
I think it's easy to like generalize, especially like we've seen it here, where it's like it's one unknown person becoming computer people, because it's like a lot of people do not understand software engineering. I certainly don't, and therefore it becomes the province of like the people who do that. And that's their responsibility. It's just
If
it
there
comes
were
out of the computer somewhere.
Yeah.
if
So
if they were a structure, there would be a stamp with a name on it and a number.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no one ever wants to do more regulation apart from us.
Yeah.
One thing that sort of in terms of this, and we're this is sort of an expanded discussion that can go on, but what Leveson says in her sort of critique of everything is it often takes an accident to alert people to the dangers involved in technology. I'm quoting directly here. And a medical physicist wrote about the Therac-25 instance that in the past decade or two, the medical accelerator industry has become a little complacent about safety. We've assumed that manufacturers have all kinds of safety design experience since they've been in the business a long time. We know that there are many safety codes, guides, and regulations to guide them, and we have been reassured by the hitherto excellent record of these machines. And except for a few incidents in the 1960s, e.g. at Hammersmith, Hamburg, the use of medical accelerators has been remarkably free of serious radiation accidents until now. Perhaps, though, we've been spoiled by this success. And the comment that this problem seems to be common across all fields. So yeah, that the sort of complacency about, this is these previous devices were fine, and the software people know what they're doing wasn't the thing here. And just a brief thing on this sort of next slide as a sort of wrap up. The main question that sort of a lot of people ask was, this device was able to come to market with two software mechanisms that could deliver a fatal dose of radiation. So what sort of testing was involved? What sort of FDA licensing process was involved? And the licensing process involved was something called pre-market notification. So this was introduced because it was designed in principle, so this is quoting directly from the FDA, that the device to be marketed is safe and effective in that it's substantially equivalent to a legally marketed device. So because
oh my god, we've seen this happen as a loophole with the car industry.
Yeah.
We've seen dangerous cars get through because they've managed to convince the Department of Transportation that it's not a substantial, it's not a new model, it's like a slight refinement of an existing thing that you've already passed.
Or maybe an airplane.
Or an airplane.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Therac-20 and the Therac-25, because the Therac-6 was on the market and had already gone through the full approvals process, neither of the other devices were required to go through the same, and they entered the market because of the 510K procedure.
Because it speeds things up, it allows you to iterate, it's efficient. I mean, this it's also something else that harkens to the 737 Max is as we just said, it's the airline industry too is one of these industries that has benefited from success because it is very safe. It knows it's very safe. It considers itself to have a safety culture. And that was precisely the way that allowed it to be sort of so complacent about these things, is because when you have this sort of like evidence base of safety, it allows you to go, oh well, this thing that happened was probably just an aberration, because mistakes like that do not happen in our industry. They don't happen to us.
No, and this is the thing is that while the FDA did change its procedures here, so they did implement a way by which end users were then able to record sort of errors with and report errors with medical devices and software, because this is obviously software is I think in relative infancy at the time. They still have issues with medical devices. So subsequently to the Therac-25, there's been other device scandals which have occurred. In sort of the specialty I used to work in, which is orthopedics, there was a particular design of total hip replacement with a metal on metal bearing that came to market because it was a modified version of a previous design, and the previous design had undergone all the previous safety procedures, even though it had an entirely different bearing surface. And that resulted in lots of patient morbidity where these things failed early because of the eccentric wear on the cup. That's an episode in itself. And also sort of transvaginal mesh implants is the other big medical scandal. So these are sort of implantable meshes that were originally developed sort of to repair sort of hernias, but then they applied for a license based on the fact that we use these to repair hernias. Uterine prolapse is kind of like a hernia. It's still going in the abdominal cavity.
It's basically the same.
It's basically the same. And there was a sort of there was a BMA investigation into one of this, and they sort of found that there were sort of tens of different devices, all having spun off from this one parent device, all doing completely different things in different parts of the body, made of different materials. And in the case of the sort of transvaginal mesh implants, a huge scandal that's left lots of people severely, disabled, incontinent, all sorts of horrific consequences as a result.
Just sort of an easy way to get your foot in the door of regulation is you get one thing approved, and then just anything else like it, you can just sort of slide through.
The last thing was good. This one's probably good too. Yeah, prove it, Bill.
And it's in medicine. It's this sort of there can sort of be an element whereby this occurs in one specialty, and everyone sort of goes, well, that would occur in that specialty. But
those idiots over in the radiology department, they might do that. This will never happen to me in the urology department.
I think this is where there is a good argument for sort of saying, well, look, you've got to kind of keep abreast of what is happening in other sectors of your profession, because what's happened in one has happened in another, and it's happened multiple times. And any new device, you need to have some sort of level of scrutiny of all new devices coming to market. And after every one of these, there is then the push for regulation, but in a specific sector. So this hip implant, which is something called the DePuy ASR. So as a result of that, lots of places, the US and the UK, did change the way that they sort of record medical devices. They're much more stringent about what devices they record. They implemented basically a complete ban on metal hip bearings being used. But then there's several other fields whereby there are loads of devices on the market with pre-market notification, and I think caution. Yes, it does drive innovation. I think it's important to have healthcare innovation from a personal standpoint, but at the same time, be aware of sort of making huge, dramatic changes to one device or.
Just an easy way of doing regulation on the cheap, because governments don't like regulating things, and manufacturers don't like being regulated, and the only people who benefit from regulation are clinicians and patients, and who cares about them? Well, I think we've learned a lot about the Therac-25.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad to have written a thesis. It's fantastic.
Do we think we have time for Safety Third, or do we want to get an early night after a mere 3.5 hours?
I want to go get some food before everything closes.
Perfectly reasonable.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you so much for coming on and for writing the slides for this.
That's no problem.
It's been very entertaining, and we'll love to have you back on anytime we get anything even tenuously medically.
That's fine. I'm happy to come back. I have. Sorry.
Oh. I was going to say our next episode is on the Chernobyl disaster.
Yes. People want more Tom, where can they find you?
So I have nothing to plug. You can find me working in the NHS, although you struggle to find me because I'm sort of in a lab most of the day. The only things I would say at this point, if you're in the UK, please support the nurses who are on strike at the moment. Please support ambulance drivers on strike. The BMA is holding a strike ballot in 2 days' time for junior doctors, so support junior doctors when we go on strike. And at some point, it looks like there may even be a consultant strike as an indication of how problematic things are in the NHS, because we are losing good people at a rapid rate, and it is at all levels of the organization now.
It's incredible how Jeremy Corbyn did this.
I don't know why he did this, and I don't really support him doing that, but well, we have a Patreon. You can subscribe to it. You get a bonus episode when we do a bonus episode. We do them as quickly as we can, which is not very quickly. We are also falling apart, but without under any of the other institutional pressures. We're just also doing that for fun. And please do that. We would be very happy to take your money, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.